69. Now it's time for new, believable people, and we must do it. If we don't control insiders, this will be over and over. To lead by an any big fat love, find common ground to halt the spread of lies, and we must do it big fat love, find common ground to halt the spread of lies, and any America first. America first, non-fatal. We want to build a much better, believable people, and we must do it non-fatal. Communication very much higher. America first. To lead by an any insiders fighting for insiders. Time to stop. Insiders fighting for insiders. More of insiders fighting for insiders. Time to stop. Insiders fighting for insiders. America first. Love the flow. 69. Now it's time for new, believable people, and we must do it. If we don't control insiders, this will be over and over. To lead by an any big fat love, find common ground to halt the spread of lies, and we must do it big fat love, find common ground to halt the spread of lies, and any America first. America first, non-fatal. We want to build a much better, believable people, and we must do it non-fatal. Communication very much higher. America first. To lead by an any insiders fighting for insiders. Time to stop. Insiders fighting for insiders. More of insiders fighting for insiders. Time to stop. Insiders fighting for insiders. America first. Love the flow.
Well, you know, you never will get an appreciation for how difficult it might be to do the job of your, and of course, I'm not trying to put the British and I in this category, but to do the job of your favorite radio / TV / whatever host, and to also figure out, you know, when the song is going to frickin' end. When should you turn your microphone on? Because I can't. I'm trying to get a better system where my mic will be on, Britisher, and I can still do those things. But as it stands now, to play a clip with audio, my audio, this is gone. The microphone's gone. You know, nothing's happening here on my end. So I got it. And anyway, I'm not going to cry all day. I did notice though that it was a gigantic news day here in the Wayward Colonies. I'm not going to gild the lily forever.
Republicans been up to?
Oh, I don't know who us, Rick. I'm not a Republican. God save me.
No, I don't mean Republicans in insofar as party allegiance. I mean, given that you're the renegade republic.
Oh, I see. Well, again, what we've been up to is difficult for me because I'm not one of the we. But it does seem to me, Britisher, that there has been this, it's never ending. Trump does the thing, and CNN threatens to dox, and they do all this one after the other. And now all of a sudden, though there was a lawyer that Donald Trump Jr. met with. And I've been furiously trying to find the dump of his emails. I'm not sure if you've seen them. I haven't seen them.
I haven't seen them either. I mean, I've seen sort of snippets of emails, but I've not sort of seen a mother load of a particular dump of emails. No, I haven't. So I don't know how many emails specifically one is talking about. But it does not seem to be in dispute because the emails were actually released by Trump Jr. before the New York Times broke the story.
Yeah, do you know anything about the whole backstory? Because I'll play devil's advocate on that.
Well, go ahead.
Well, CNN is claiming that they were in communications with Don Jr. and that they already had the emails, and that he, through his PR man, went to them and said, well, would you please give us a moment, to get everything together, because this is, was a campaign. We talked to thousands of people. And then, before, while they were getting their things together, he released it on Twitter.
Was it CNN or was it the New York Times? Because
I'm sorry,
from what I understood, it was the New York Times that
failures. I'm sorry, it's New York Times. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, in that regard, it's perhaps not necessarily all too good form by Trump Jr. to do so, but it also would suggest that, you know, he either just released the copy he had been sent, or he already had the copies of his wayward emails to hand.
He had them. I mean, let's not be foolish. If we're going to go, if I'm going to stick with the Hillary thing, and I'm going to be my independent self-Britisher, and I'm going to pretend that I know and believe that Hillary Clinton had the 38,000 emails. Well, then come on, man. Whether or not, I'll go back to Donald Trump Jr. also not being all-knowing, all-seeing eye of the world, like I did with Mrs. Clinton. So maybe he's not okaying every single thing that goes by, but he met with this person. It would be like you saying that you didn't remember an email I sent you 3 months ago saying, would you
yes, but I mean, in this particular case, it does seem to have been a memorable email, doesn't it?
Very memorable. It should have been.
He seems to have been sent an email that effectively said, I am the, you know, I would like to be the go-between. There is this lawyer. She may have information. This is coming from the Russian state. This is part of their support for you.
And I want to read it, but that's what I'm understanding, that they even said in the body of the email that it was part of the Russian state.
Yes. So, I mean, you know, I'm paraphrasing here. This isn't the exact quote, but that is pretty much the material content of it. And his reply to it is, if this is what it is, then brilliant, or something along those lines. Now, one of the problems we have here, because you know that my position until now has always been that the Russia story is nothing. One of the problems
until now.
Yes. I mean,
okay.
I am not saying my position is this now, really. I am not saying that this proves anything, because there is nothing to say that anything ever came of it. But it reeks, doesn't it?
Well, you're doing what I'm doing, and you're putting yourself in his position and saying to yourself, after all of everything that's gone on and how quickly that he rebutted with releasing the emails, wouldn't you? Oh man, I don't even want to. Okay, carry on, Brett, because you say it. Don't. I'm American. I got to live here. You say it.
I mean, if he was already sitting on the emails, then pretty much he must have done a trawl of his own emails, and basically the Trump camp must have already kind of gone through what is the stuff that could make us look bad, so that we can immediately rebut something if it comes to the fore. But that means that they can't really claim not to know about it, because they've already gone looking for it themselves.
And I got to say that, Britisher, what we were talking about with Mrs. Clinton, no, Donald Trump's a different monster, sir. He sleeps 4 hours a day. He's been running an empire for decades. This is the issue that I have with it. And oh shit, I can see the subs leaving right now as I say this. I can just watch. I'm going to watch the amount of people watching right now to what we'll be watching. And they'll be like, oh Lord, you know, Ogre has drunk the Kool-Aid poured straight from the Britisher's picture, you know. But that's not the case. I'm just trying to be real as I can be and say that, you know, Hillary Clinton knows about everything. If she remembers it, I don't know, but she's a control freak. Donald Trump, he knows about everything, Britisher. And his mind is a fucking steel trap. Even if he doesn't do right, he knew that he knew about these emails.
Well, when it comes to that, as I say, the official line now by the Trump camp is that Donald Trump didn't know about this. Now,
listen, Donald Trump Jr. Don't hang on, Brett.
Donald Trump, no way that Donald Trump Jr. would not have told his father about this.
Thank you, sir, because this is what I was going to say. Donald Trump Jr. don't cut a fart unless he clears it with his old man.
Well, especially if he is talking to what is effectively what he believes to be, at least, a source of the Russian government. So basically, his father is running for president, and he is talking to somebody who says they've got dirt on Hillary Clinton, and it's coming from the Russian government. And you wish to tell me that he doesn't think that is worth mentioning, not only to his father, but generally to his campaign managers and people like that. I mean, there is absolutely no way that he just kept this to himself and thought, let's see what comes of it, then went to the meeting, nothing came of it, and he came back and just decided to not mention it to anybody.
Yeah. And look,
I don't believe that for a moment.
We're going to lose another 2 on this one. We just lost 2 on my diatribe on, but Bannon knew about this shit too. Steve Bannon is also a control freak that's used to having he was a Breitbart. I mean, come on, he is going in the vein of Andrew Breitbart. Yes. You know, and it's not. I'm not saying it's a bad vein. I'm just saying that these kind of type A personalities, Britisher, they know what's going on, man. I wonder who sometimes is doing shit up there, and I'm not taking away from Donald Trump, but Bannon has a lot of pull, and I'm not sure if I'm happy with that.
Well, I think my view on the whole thing really is that it doesn't prove anything. It basically, the fact that this email has come out is not a smoking gun, because it doesn't actually mean that something was exchanged. But what it does show is that Trump Jr. and in essence really the Trump camp showed willingness to basically take something from the Russians. Because that in itself is against the rules. Now, why would you go and meet somebody of whom you thought they would be providing aid on, information on Hillary Clinton that came from the Russian government?
Well, sir, listen, it's not against the rules, British. It's not against the rules. We have many lobbyists that are lobbying on all kinds of different. It would be against the rules to absolutely collude with another government in a campaign.
But that's what you would be doing.
Well, to collude, in other words, to say I'm going to throw my hat in, but to meet with someone that says I'm a lawyer, I'm this person, and I have some stuff on your opponent. It wouldn't matter, sir. If you're going to take that away, Brett, you'd have to take away our lobbying system. We have the right for a redress of grievances. Wait. Now listen. Now, this might be hard for you to wrap your mind around, but because of that right to a redress of grievance, it really might, Brett. It really may. But because of that right to a redress of grievance, we have this huge machine that I hate. It's the lobbyists. Right now, as we speak, there are people in Washington, D.C., Britisher, that are buying meals and shots of unbelievably expensive cognac and braised babies, braised white babies, over charcoal fire. They're eating them meals and having because we have this right to no matter. And a lot of those, to make it clear too, and I'll shut up, man. I want to hear, because you got to please understand this, Brett. To make our system work, some of those people at those meetings are heads of state of foreign governments. We have a lot of lobbyists, a lot of lobbying organizations that are absolutely controlled by the Kremlin, by Vanuatu, by the Philippines, by all kinds of people. But we retain that right. So, and it ties into this email this way. Hey, when you're in a campaign and you're looking to get information about your rival, you look to get it at any channel that will flow your way. And I don't see that there is a collusion here in the fact that, A, they didn't have anything. Maybe if they had some, there would have been, Brett. I mean, if we want to argue that, we can. But there was nothing. Even said it was nothing. So I don't know. I really don't know what to feel about this.
Well, there is no collusion as such. I'm echoing again. There's no collusion as such because we don't know that anything actually was exchanged. But at the same time, we also know that stuff was flying around against Hillary Clinton. So we still don't really know what the eventual source of that material was. But it now does look more likely that it might have been the Russians. But as such, what it does show is willingness to collude. Because this is not the same thing as the lobby system. This is basically a candidate seeking to secure for himself an advantage by basically getting something from a foreign government. Now, I know that a lot of people, who are kind of Trump supporters, they will kind of dig their heels in and say, no way. But I would just ask those people to kind of try and imagine it the other way round. If basically this had been Hillary Clinton being fed material that came from Justin Trudeau's Canada.
Well, she did that with Ukraine, sir.
Yes, but about Trump. Would one then still be willing to shrug and say, "Oh well, that was just like lobbying," or would one then be screaming from the rooftops and saying, "This is absolutely scandalous"?
Oh, well, that's just like lobbying. Now you're throwing me personally.
She was being fed stuff by Trudeau, by a foreign government, in order to gain an advantage on Trump.
But you just threw me personally into that, sir. So I'll just say this because you were just, oh, well, it was a lot like lobbying. I appreciate the way you did that. That was very artful, the way you slipped that in there. But look, we can point to Ukraine, and Mrs. Clinton did collude, absolutely collude with Ukraine. Not an ambiguous meeting, but collusion. So, we can go there. But nothing's being said about it.
Was that collusion that benefited her in the United States?
Well, that was the goal, yes. But just like what you could say, collusion that benefited so far, they always the left always like to point to this. 17 agencies say that Trump, blah, 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 blah. Well, 17 agencies in Comey in front of Congress said that not one vote was swayed one way or the other for either candidate based on Russian collusion. So what are we talking? I mean, see what I mean? What the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah, until now, as I say, until now, we have been talking about nothing. And that's why I've always said this is complete nonsense. Because whenever they came out with their 17 agencies, which
until now, now what, Brett? Now what?
Well, now you have to understand that until now there has never been anything that in any way tied Russia in with Trump in any regard. It's all been hearsay. When they've been talking about their 17 agencies, that includes the Coast Guard. I mean, it's just, this is nonsense. What they've been coming up with now. It was desperate. It was an attempt to just smear and smear and smear.
You know your shit, because that does include the Coast Guard. That's so hilarious that you know that. A lot of Americans would not know that, sir.
But, now there is something black and white. And it basically shows a willingness of the Trump camp. And of course, already now there is damage limitation at work, where the father is saying, officially the father didn't know anything about it. Nobody knew anything about it. This entirely grew on Trump Jr.'s midden. And you look at it and you go, no, that's not really true.
That doesn't play into the 4D chess narrative, does it either, sir?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So basically, now it kind of indicates that the Trump camp was at least showing willingness to work with the Russians. Now that then puts a different spin on it, because that means that it adds credibility. Whereas until now, you simply always had to find in favor of Trump, because there was absolutely nothing that tied Trump to this. Now there is an email that clearly ties his camp.
Oh, there's still nothing until I see that this lawyer from Russia, Astina, I can't even begin to pronounce her name. It's right here in front of me. I'm not even gonna try. So yes, until something comes out that this woman really look, Brett, let's put ourselves in this position. We are now overseeing a vast campaign for the president of the United States of America. You and I, as we know each other now. How many, and we're underlings, okay? We're just part of the cogs, but maybe we're higher up. We're just right below the Steve Bannon area of the how many people will we see? How many people will we I watch you in your comments section on your channel, sir, and you are a diligent fool. You don't know if there's anything. You must read them all, because if any comment that I see is even, I quit trying to keep up with it. I would get on your channel and think, oh, I try to help the Britisher, but I just quit, because if there's anything worth responding to, you'll respond to it. So put it in that light. Would you remember what country, even if it became a controversy? Because I'm going to say this, I don't think this is the only thing Donald Trump Jr. or Donald Trump or anybody in his campaign talked to about with a Russian. This is not it. There's other things, but good gracious, I hope that wasn't too long to put you in that position. You and I are in this campaign. We're trying to get this person elected. Do you, sir, the steel trap you have for a brain, do you remember everybody that came and said they had dirt on your opponent?
If I get an email telling me that not just a foreign government, that would already be memorable, but that the Russian Federation is seeking to support the cause, then yes, I would remember that. There is absolutely no way I would not remember that.
Well, I can't really argue it, can I, sir? Because suddenly when they started pressing him, the New York Times on whatever, he did come up with the emails awfully quickly. So
yeah, a nuclear superpower wishes to support this particular presidential candidate. How many other nuclear superpowers are there? You know, in that regard,
Great Britain.
We are not a nuclear superpower. No, we are a nuclear power.
Okay, all right, okay. So I guess there's only two?
There are only two superpowers, yes.
Right, okay, all right.
So in that regard, it would stand out if you get an email saying the Russians, this is part of the Russian effort to help. So I couldn't remember it would definitely not be an acceptable excuse.
Well, okay, and we got other news, but Britisher, I really want to give you a piece here. Because if I go on, you'll just later on, if you don't tell me on air, you'll tell me later, really, Mr. Oga, you just stand up for the right, you know, and I don't, you know, so I do believe that it's important. So what do you see? This is not a tweet. You and I have ding-donged about Trump and all these things, but I have to admit, this is not a tweet that he made about the morning show, you know, with Crazy Joe, and it's not. Yep. Something different. So where do you see how is this going to impact the narrative that the you know, President Trump and his ilk were colluding?
Okay. The way I would put it is this. This proves nothing other than basically that you have now got actually proof that one particular member of the Trump camp was effectively showing willingness to take information from a foreign power. That in itself already is questionable. You don't have any proof that it would be the Trump camp, but it's a fair assumption to make. But as such, the position as we have it now suddenly puts, and you will hate me for saying this, it puts the CNNs, it puts the MSNBCs, it puts all them who were just a few days ago in the absolute doghouse because of the Nothing Burger story. It now suddenly puts them in the ascendancy, because think of it from the position that you are something like a detective, and you are looking at a crime scene. You may not find any proof. You may just have to file it away, as we'll never know. But if you find evidence that points in some direction, even if it is not conclusive proof, then that evidence warrants that you investigate further. And this is the problem that Trump has with this particular thing, because now there is, until now, it's been hype. It has been the left simply wanting to constantly question his eligibility for office. But now there is actual justifiable cause to investigate, because now there is something there, and there is no way he can really escape that. So that still doesn't mean that he has done something, but now you can't really criticize congressmen or anyone else for wanting to investigate further into Russia and Trump, and you can't simply write it off as being partisan, because now you've effectively given them a reason to want to investigate further. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, and I'll say to everybody in the chat, Captain Colepile, anybody that has criticism, if I can listen to what he just said and move on, then the rest of you can too. Because yeah, Britisher, I was listening very carefully to what you said, and if I weigh it in the balance of sanity, sir, not with any disparaging light of dogma or partisan ideas in that scale, no weight other than just the sheer measure of things, I can't disagree with, yes, it puts, if nothing else, a grain on the side of their scale, where there's, in other words, yes, they do now have this to continue, whatever it is that you want to call it. I've heard it called everything from an investigation into treason on the left to a nothing burger on the right, whatever you want to call it. It definitely puts another grain because, you know, listen, brother. And then, you know, maybe we'll get into some other news. I want to mention something about about vaporizing before we carry on with the next thing. But, and Britisher, look, I don't even know if I want to say anything. I really want to let you put the bow on that. I already said too much, because we have to consider things. And I would just, I would wager that for you, and I would say humbly for me, it don't matter who's in power. If they're doing foolish things, I would like to say that I have a mind and I can see foolishness from afar. And if I can see it and I blind myself to whatever foolishness that may be, well, then I am a fool as well. And Don Trump Jr. did not know that he was talking to some Russians, and he didn't not know that he did that through this whole insanity. He would have been wise to come out with this right off the bat. So I don't know what else to say about that, man. But listen, do you believe, has this hurt the whole the White House at this point?
Well, I think it definitely, it's not done it any good, has it? And it has undermined the narrative that this is nothing. And what is so almost cruel about it is that just at the point of victory, where it seemed that this was a nothing burger, that basically once you caught the media people themselves saying, we haven't got anything, that within days of that, basically then this comes out, and I'm sorry, but now it is no longer a nothing burger. It doesn't mean that this proves anything, because it doesn't, but it just simply warrants further investigation.
Well, it definitely makes it a quarter pounder with cheese.
Well, I'm not sure I would go that far, because you know, how much meat there really is there still remains to be established. If this is the only thing that is ever found, then that is not enough to in any way bring down Donald Trump. But it is enough to keep this thing rumbling on and on and on.
Yeah, for long. And here's the thing, it might not bring him down, Brett, but of all the things that you and I have talked about, you know, that surround Donald Trump's administration, this is the thing that I believe would have legs. You know what I mean by that?
Yes, the fact that this is evidence. You know, there's a difference between evidence and proof, but this is nonetheless evidence, and it's evidence that is not even disputed. So in that regard, it's very difficult to just basically discount it and to suggest, you know, let's move on, this is nothing.
Well, and when I say legs, when I say that it has legs, I mean that a lot of the things that have been controversial from the Trump camp won't mean nothing when the next election comes up. This is something, Britisher, that Americans may remember in the long haul.
And it also depends what this leads on to. But basically because as I say, this warrants further investigation. So this may not yet be the end of the story. Are there other emails that Don Jr. was sending or receiving, whether it be from the Russians or from other parties? Because this now effectively allows a subpoena to be made for all his emails.
Yeah.
And,
well,
and
they should
once,
be. It should be.
Once that happens, you never know what else is found.
Well,
It might have nothing to do with Russia. So it has legs insofar that it can spiral further, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and for a law, it's going to be there for the long haul. Because,
yes, because these things are never resolved within a week or two. They go on for months and possibly years.
Well, and it's like you said, it puts fuel on this fire. One thing that Americans will remember, they may not remember tweets about bombing Syria, and then they bombed Syria while they had crack jokes while they're eating cake with a fucking presidente from China, whatever. They may not remember these things.
Yes.
But they will remember when the son of the president. And here's the danger. Let me just not trail on that, because I'm telling you, man, we got the two came back, but we our line of talk is not very it doesn't resonate with our viewers, but it should. Sometimes, hey, and that's why I'm glad that we have this platform, man, because sometimes it doesn't matter if it resonates, it just matters if it's true. So here we go. You have this. The problem is when you have your family, I mean, his daughter is one of, so now you got Jared Kushner, and you've seen the kerfuffle with that, you know, and he's sending stuff out to Morning Joe and everything. You have the family close. I'm not saying, you know, it's not a good thing. Yes, I am.
Well,
I'm saying that it's not
put it like this: if the person who had sent and received these emails would have been one John Smith from Idaho, it would be much easier for President Trump to distance himself from this.
Yeah, but the guy's last name is Trump. His last name is Trump.
And basically says this has nothing to do with me. But
right.
if she's either called Ivanka Trump or Don Jr., then it's not really something. Or also, what's the other guy called? Gerald Kushner, isn't it?
Yeah, Kushner. Yeah.
So basically, those are the people he cannot distance himself from. So in that regard, there might be a downside to nepotism in this regard.
Yeah, and before I move on, listen, we have a very you know, I like Staggerson Jags. I dig a lot of stuff.
Good evening, Mr. Jags.
He's always wrong. He thinks the fucking world's round. What a caveman he is. It's flat as a pancake. And that aside,
well, it's not quite absolutely round.
It's
closer to a pancake. It's closer than saying it's a pancake.
Oh, God save me. But here we go. But what I was trying to say was, you know, if you've been listening at all or have anything to say on this topic, say it now, Stag, and I'm going to move on.
I do have something to say about this, and I don't know if you guys have gone over this or not. And you know me, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump hater. I tend to look at things objectively, or at least I try to. Is this: I understand that it's against the law to take something from the adversary, as they've been saying on the radio all day. But I also know that there wasn't really any information about Hillary given, it seems. But had there been, why is that a bad thing? Why is it a bad thing if information about our presidential candidate becomes public? I don't see how there could possibly be anything wrong with that, besides taking it from a foreign adversary.
Okay.
But
can I give you a counter example? Because it's a good question. It's a very good question. But let's assume that the KGB or whatever, is it the FSB? I think they call themselves these days, isn't it? But we all still call them the KGB. Let's assume that, as I say, they have got a very big organization, and they more than likely have been gathering dirt on all sorts of candidates. Now, let's assume for a moment that they have dirt on Mr. Trump and they have dirt on Hillary. But then they do a deal with Mr. Trump and provide him with the material on Hillary. Is that still not a good thing? Is that still just a good thing? Or is that now becoming very questionable?
When you put it that way, it's very questionable, absolutely. But I'm not sure that that's the case. I don't know.
Also, at the same time, if the KGB would not provide information, If instead the KGB would have provided him with $100 million, would that be different?
Yeah, I think that would be different because
okay.
my
now,
point wouldn't stand on anything.
Yeah. In terms of campaigning cost, how much was the actual material worth? So basically, how much advertising would Trump have had to buy to have had the same effect in damage on Hillary Clinton that information provided?
I see. So it's almost like the Russians were working for the Trump campaign to help him campaign against Hillary. Is that kind of the way you're trying to put it?
Well, yes, because in that regard, it is to his benefit in the same way as money would be to his benefit. So it may be paid in kind, but it's the same thing. So if you are against someone receiving a monetary benefit, then it shouldn't really matter whether it's, instead of money, it's 5 tons of silk, or it's information that is to his benefit. Do you understand what I mean?
See. Yeah, I do. And you've kind of made me think about that a little bit more. And my original point was, if they had truthful information about Hillary, shouldn't we be privy to that? But you made a really good point. If that was the case, they probably should have just gave that information out freely and not made some...
Yeah. Well, as I say, if Wikipedia simply gets information and they just decide to put it out, I have no problem with that. The fact that Wikipedia has been attacked saying, oh, you've only revealed it on about Hillary. Well, they only had information on Hillary. So in that regard, that's where I take your position, that it is completely a fair thing to do, that you simply release the information you have. But when it comes to kind of foreign agents, when it comes to countries who have their own interests at heart, I mean, Russia would not be supporting Trump because they just simply like the cut of his suit. It would be because they would deem it in their own national interest. But that then means there are foreign national interests meddling in your general elections. I mean, what if, say,
which we don't want, and we have not wanted since we wrote our Constitution.
So what if, for example, China would have deemed it in their national interest that Hillary gets elected? So in that case, you then have the danger of basically Russia wanting it one way, China wanting it another way. Perhaps Mexico has also something to say, you know, because of the border wall and things like that. The simple rule is you want these people out. You don't want them involved in any way in your election process. And therefore, any suggestion of somebody basically preparing to meet someone else to receive information from a foreign government looks very fishy.
Yeah, you make a really good point. And the fact that it was a backyard or backdoor deal. And what's this, do we really think that the Russian government can't make it look like she doesn't work for the Russian government? I mean, they can do, they have spies.
Chances are they would never have picked someone who was directly linked to them in the first place. So they would always be
that's kind of my point.
Yeah, I'm very sure. I know I said there'd be one other person in here today. I hate to change things on you on the fly, but I'm going to try to get Nachi Free in here on this.
Okay, yeah.
Earlier,
but,
it gives another leg on the other side there.
Yeah.
Carry on.
But I'll say with
on Stag's side right now,
there would always be deniability. Now, when it comes to it, you said earlier that nothing really came of it. Well, that's what the Trump camp says. The truth is, we don't really know nothing ever came of it. We just know that there is no evidence that anything ever came of it. What we know is that a meeting was arranged and it was about information. Everything thereafter is really hearsay.
Right, sure, yeah. No, yeah, you made me think a lot more about my question. And it was just a question. I wasn't trying to say there was nothing wrong with it at all.
Don't let him beat you up, Staggerson. Don't let him beat you up with his pompous ways and his very posh attitude.
No, man, I'm movable, man. I'm willing, I can change my mind.
Way to be easy on our guests there, British.
No, really, I think that you gave a really good answer to my question, and you brought up a lot of good points that I just honestly I hadn't thought of.
Well, it's the
And
day
you
show. It's the day show. This is the day when we bring folks on, and you know, sometimes we just are friendly, and sometimes we're just it's day show.
We're very British. Yes. Sometimes we're friendly, and sometimes we're very British. I think that's what you were meaning to say.
Yes, it's a very British day show today, and always. But you know what? We have to be movable, but we also have to be firm. And I'm going to say this: I wish in my heart that I had a chance to express to be able to prove this, Britt. But I would, man, if Hillary, who do you know this? Who do I always glow about from the left? What American president do I always glow about? And I say that to my knowledge, he's right up there in the top 3 presidents of my lifetime. You know his name, Slick Willie.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, I'm going early. Yeah, you got that. That's a long time ago. Bill Clinton. And so I don't classify myself as right or left. I mean, for the sake, Bill Clinton is obviously the husband of Hillary Clinton. This is my short point that is turning out long. It don't matter to me who's president. I stood up for Obama for years, man. As soon as he got out of office, I started to rag on him like I do the rest that are morons. But until then, I stick up. Fix that echo there, Nacho. I stick up for those that are in the office of president. You know, the best points you've made about Donald Trump, sir, were that, because I was, man, right there trying to ding dong with you, man, over, you know, the tweets that he makes, some of the and no, I have come to this. I will move this way. Staggerson's willing to move. I'll move this way. There are certain things and certain behaviors that are not becoming of a head of state. And I don't see that my beloved president at this point, just as Obama was my beloved president, and every other one that was president as I was alive were my beloved president. He's not been demonstrating that. I wish he could be a little more Ronald Reagan in his pathos, you know, and the way that he presents himself.
Thank you for saying that, Ogre, because I agree. And I've had a hard time in my little redneck hillbilly town of about 12,000 people that every single one of them, except for one person I know, voted for Donald Trump, and they all hated Obama. And for 8 years, while everybody was hating Obama, it would get so, it started to bother me at a level I would have to say, we're Americans. This is our president. You need to respect the office at least, you know. Respect the man for being our president. If you don't like his policies, that's fine. But to rag on the guy about his middle name, you know, he's our president. There's a certain amount of respect that an American should have for their president.
Can I ask a very, very tricky question? Even if it were to be found that Trump had colluded with the Russians, would it still be the better thing that Trump won and Hillary lost?
You'd have to define colluding with the Russians to me, sir.
Well, basically, if it were to be found, and it has not been so far, but if it were to be found that Trump was taking information that was provided from the Russians, that he knew it was coming from the Russians, and he basically had some talks in order to, through middlemen, through the Sun, through somebody else.
Yeah, I get
basically.
you.
So basically, if that were to be found to be true,
I will weigh in.
Would effectively be a means of cheating.
No.
Would it still be better that Trump won?
I don't care if he colluded with Paraguay. If he colluded with Palau, I wouldn't care if he colluded or any other person running for any position in our government. I wouldn't care if they colluded with anyone. If they colluded with them and offered them favors from the United States government on my behalf, again, I don't care if it was Paraguay. I don't care if it was Palau. I don't care if it was Russia. Then they should string him up just like they did the Rosenbergs. They should take him out, make him stand before the wall, and shoot the motherfucker.
True. I understand what you're getting at here, but would it not still mean he spared the nation a Hillary Clinton government?
No, because then now we're talking about the same thing, because there's already proof. Man, listen, Mrs. Clinton had people murdered. You know, if the powers that be don't like me saying that, take my fucking puny channel down. Fuck you. I got better shit to do anyway. But she had people murdered. Seth Rich is the least of which. You go, Mr. Thorne. I mean, I could go and rabble on now and give you names. Webster Hubble is her daughter's father. That's just the way it is. I mean, these people are so rooted in evil. So no, if Trump was willing to do that, then he betrayed everything that I felt when I voted for him twice, once for Republican nomination and once for president. And that was that no matter if he was a sleazy billionaire, New York real estate mogul that went through trophy wives like I changed my fucking underwear, that didn't matter. That he was there to say America first, that we are going to be nationalists, not alt-right maniacs that want to destroy other races. America first, nationalists. And if he was going to do, if he colluded with Russia or any other country, no matter their size or scope, and promised them anything, 1 ruble, one anything, then he should hang like the rest of the traitors.
If it's true that Hillary is an evil clown, like everybody on the right says she is, if all the horrible things about Hillary are true, then I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing that Trump's the president, regardless of who he colluded with. And that's just an ends justify the means kind of way of looking at it. And I'm not saying that Hillary is evil. I don't know. I know there's a lot of accusations. I haven't seen much evidence, but I just don't know. But it's sort of like, what if we broke the Geneva Conventions to eliminate ISIS?
See, I told you, Britisher, he's right up your street. He's a damn leftist apologist here.
I was going to say, aren't the Geneva Conventions to a large degree kind of overrated, especially for something like ISIS, man?
Yes, Nazi, yes, sir.
No, but seriously,
is that a quote of Fidel Castro's?
There might have been 1 or 2 things he got right. There might have been 1 or 2 things. I guarantee you, Antifa would not have fucking done what they did in Germany, in Cuba. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Let me embarrass Nachi a little bit. Look, they're waiting here, sir, right by my. I've moved them to my chair. Right. Oh, well, that's just a blank sheet of paper. But I've moved these sketches to my chair right by here because the frame should be.
I would
here
like
tomorrow.
to point out to the entire internet that Ogre just held up a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah, well,
just whatever.
But I went to a place.
Memes.
I went to a place called
the memes. What they will be able to put on that blank sheet.
Well, I'll tell you this, Nachi. The people that are framing the pictures for me, it's a place called You've Been Framed in Midland. They're right on par. They actually cost me, with tax, they cost me $15 more than you did. So, you know, the fucking frames better look good.
I would hope so, man. At least what's going inside does. But by the way, has anybody gone over? I know 2 wrongs don't make a right, but with this whole thing with Hillary, I mean, with Trump, Donald Trump Jr., have you guys already talked about the fact that with all this brouhaha about him fucking meeting up and getting the dirt on the Clintons, what about all the fucking dirt that the Clintons did on their own people, on fucking Bernie Sanders, and taking that guy down, and all that collusion within themselves? I mean, with fucking Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it is amazing to me that nobody's really, not with you guys, but I'm saying like the media itself, I have yet to hear that brought up, or maybe it has.
Well, I think it's one of those subjects which basically is kind of the equivalent of the persona non grata on kind of the more left-leaning media, isn't it? So, I mean, the reason, of course, this now is the motherlode of all stories is because this is exactly the sort of story they want.
Oh, of course,
because
yeah.
in this case, it points towards Trump. So I think we know why. We know why nothing has been said about, Saint Hilary of Troy, but when it comes to this one, I don't think kind of just sort of saying, well, you didn't report on Hillary really is strong enough an argument, because here clearly there seems to be sort of an indication that there is with the best will in the world, you know, they have got something that is worthy of reporting here. There's also, as I just said before, this is worthy of further investigation.
And you know what's going to happen, Britisher, if I let because I think that I don't even know if I sent a show map to Staggerson Jags, and if I didn't, I'm sorry, Stag. I should have sent you one, but I think you're in possession of one there, Nachi. And if I keep going on this first topic, because we're going on into the top of the next hour, we'll never get to anything else. So, Nachi, don't worry about what anybody fucking thinks, least of all us here. How do you think that this first topic here, this Donald J. Trump, how has it impacted it, good, bad, or indifferent?
Oh, man, I think it definitely should be investigated. I mean, I thought that there was already more than enough investigation with the whole thing with Russia, and which I haven't followed very closely. That's why before I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't jump in just yet. I haven't really followed it that much. I thought that for sure there was really nothing there. You know, that not. In other words, there's no illegality. Nothing. No laws have been broken. And from the little bit that I've read up on this whole thing now with Donald Trump Jr., that's what I'm saying. It's just even right-wing or conservative people, like in the New York Post, like they're saying this is just stupid, but it's not illegal, but it's definitely stupid and not, you know, something that should not in any way, shape, or form serve as an example of, you know, something. Yeah, it's true. I wish Donald Trump would not engage in these kind of tactics, but forget it. He's, you know, he is who he is, and that's why he got to where he got. But I don't know. I don't think, other than all the gossip that's going to ensue now for the next couple of weeks over this, I don't see how this is really going to impact us. And even though I didn't vote for Donald Trump, I'm glad he won in comparison to Hillary, for sure. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. I think have we pretty much just about squeezed this lemon empty? Shall we move on to something else?
Yeah,
this dish rag is dry.
I must actually ask, you know, how traumatizing is it for Nachi to actually be talking to two avatars of his own making?
That's very inspiring, if anything.
That's all I got to do is click right there, and there's two of them. I love that. And actually, I didn't pull that one out, Notch, because it'll go. But if you see the two guitars, there's a thing above it, and the plaque says something about God blessing the house, but that's gone because I never really liked that. I didn't put it up there. And then right where that sits, it'll go more centered over that centerpiece on the sliding glass window. And you know, that's where I'm going to put that. What you see when I do have the icon up. That's one of my prized possessions, because I have never, look, I'm not Britisher. I'm not turning into he hardly comes around now because he's probably sick of getting his ass kissed.
No, I hardly come around because I'm looking for work, dude. That's the problem.
I got to be the self-deprecating Jew, man. I have to do it. But that's where that will go, man. And that is one of my prized possessions. I'm not even going to say, because like I said, but I did mention this before, and I don't want to rail on it right now. But I look forward to the day when I actually do a live stream with some people that I know, and that will maybe draw at least 20 eyeballs, at least, and maybe a couple more. And we're maybe, because you do have a job, you're a fucking artist, and then maybe you would auction off some of the swag that you draw, or you would auction off the idea of, you tell me the star that you want me to draw, and I'll do a little spiel like you do with Johnny Rotten. I mean, I've watched all your shit, the Satan one, and then after I'm done with that, this will be yours, and that's something that I see is you're an artist, you already have a job. Oh, so
thank you, bro. I may have a job, but I don't have the income. That's the problem.
That's all
he needs a job that pays.
I think that is the eternal sort of fate of all artists, really. That, I mean, even the likes of Michelangelo and whatever were always kind of struggling along, as in where is the next paid commission going to come from?
Yeah, and Scott Forbes asked me a very poignant question. Why are my curtains on the outside of the house? That's not the outside of the house. That's a sliding glass door that goes out into another section of the place. And my house is like in fact, Brisher, I think you're the only person that's ever seen a picture of my house on the internet. because I don't.
Yeah,
really
it's through that sliding door. That's the gangway to the Führer bunker.
Easy. Easy. No. Yeah. No, but it doesn't matter what's out there.
I have to embellish the myth here, don't I?
Box. It's just a big box. It's a big square. It's all it is.
By the way, Britisher, I wanted to ask you, do you wish that we would talk about British politics as much as you have so graciously informed yourself about American ones?
Yeah, because we got something right here. This Charlie.
Well, actually, yeah, you can move right onto that, and you can kind of just prove that very point.
Have you been following this? To me,
Well,
sir,
I mean, it was almost impossible not to follow this. You know, it was all over the news all the time.
Before you jump on it, and I know you will, and I can be quiet for a minute and catch my breath. This is an example to me, sir, why I don't want the government involved with my own personal decisions. I don't care if I'm a Jehovah's Witness and don't want a blood transfusion. And that goes to the child. Some children are lucky. They're not born into Christian Science families and get a minor scrape and then get an infection and die because they don't get, antibiotics. Some kids, people are lucky. So the idea of children, none of that weighs into my mind until the child is 18 years old, which is our law now. I think it should be a little younger with this kind of decision, maybe 12, 13. But until the child's old enough to decide, or the parent says, no, the state doesn't have a leg to stand on. And the single payer, sir, is the issue that I see in this next story. The Charlie Gard UK judge gives parents 2 days to prove son should be kept alive. Everybody, if you don't know who Charlie Gard is before the Britisher starts, well, you shouldn't be watching us right now.
No, I'm familiar with that. I don't know, believe it or not, man, it's not like I'm starting to become like a supporter of single payer, but I think like that whole debacle right now of, which is cruel as hell, the whole thing of like not allowing them to take the child to their home. I don't think that's a single payer. That's not a problem because of single payer. I think that's just a problem with probably excessive regulations, or
well, it just gives more
way too much.
It just puts a state in it with more power is all I'm saying.
But I think.
Can I sort of butt in here? Because I think this is one of these areas where we've got one of those rare moments, Mr. Ogre, where we'll just have to disagree. And and that is that, how should we put it? The problem as I see it, I'll try to paint the broad picture so that people listening can actually understand what this is about. Effectively, this is a child that is very, very ill, that has pretty much, it's been its entire life in this hospital. I believe it has got some kind of genetic disorder. And it effectively is being kept alive by machines. And what has happened is that the hospital, and the reason that Mr. Ogre here refers to single payer is because obviously over here the hospitals are NHS run. I think it's the Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is famous for looking after children. This hospital has basically said, look, as far as we're concerned, there is no medical hope for this child. We want to turn off the machines. And the parents are effectively saying, no. That is how it has ended up in the courts. And it has gone through the courts. I think at one point it even ended up in the European Court of Human Rights. And all these courts have found in favor of the hospital. I think Donald Trump has tweeted basically in support of the parents. There is now another court decision pending, I believe, because what has happened here is that there is some experimental therapy that is effectively being tried in America and has apparently worked for some children. But it's one of those things that sounds a bit too good to be true. And
yeah, like crystal therapy in the Netherlands or whatever. Yes.
Several experts over here have kind of already said that they just do not think this will work for this child. They have pointed the fact that for several months its head has not been growing anymore. So they believe that, there would already be that significant brain damage that this child would more than likely not be able to keep itself alive. So in this case, I would sort of say this is not a case of the state intervening against parental authority. In this case, what is happening is,
all right, Britisher, if the parents had the money,
hospital,
if the parents had the money to continue this, whatever they want, whatever, that's the point that I'm on. I hope you understand that.
Okay.
So the parents now, they're not asking anyone to pay. They are willing to do. So now, do you feel like it's a humanitarian issue where we should?
I think in that case, there is also the question, and this is, of course, the question that the court keeps foremost in mind, and that is they are not concerned with the parents. They are worried about the child. And there is the question of, is this child actually suffering? And of course, being of the age it is, it can't tell us. So the parents, of course, say, no, it isn't. But they will, of course, cling to anything because they are desperate to keep their child alive. And you can fully understand that.
You can understand it, yes.
But
yeah.
You know, at the same time, you have to kind of look at it. Is it still, is it right for the child?
But Britisher, I'm going back to the idea of freedom, sir. And please, I don't want anyone to paint me as an evil human being. But if someone that I love, my wife goes through, oh man, I can't even say it. I really got to get off that. But my wife does something in the hospital that's more difficult than anything else, and no one else is willing to do it. It just so happens that it falls on her vocation to, I can't dodge it, flip the switch. And there are times where, because of the, the patient privilege that they have, I don't know any names, but I'm married to a respiratory therapist. She comes home and she does sometimes say, Mr. Elder, I've got to tell you about this thing that happened. I don't know who these people are or anything about them. But there does come a time where healthcare professionals like Mrs. Ogre, who I know very intimately for years, say that the human beings in this situation are being evil. They're stopping the natural process of life by keeping Grandpa alive when he has COPD and could not breathe on his own, and he wouldn't want to live. And this child is not old enough to say, but Britisher, freedom, and the idea that this child was born into the hands of these parents, and if they won't listen to the multiplicity of counselors that they have at this point telling them that it would behoove your child, it would be in the best interest of your child, yourself, and humanity at large if you would let it go. If they won't listen to that, man, I don't know what to say. If they,
I think you're proving the.
I think Nachi came and then we lost him.
Oh, I wanted.
So there, no, I wasn't sure if Ogre was done. I'm sorry.
You gotta just cut him off.
Finish.
I was well done. Yeah, he yes, I was well done.
No, because it almost sounded to me like you were proving then the point of the national health system of Britain. Like there does come a point where, yeah, that's where it's tricky, man. This is a very tricky thing.
Who is it up to? That was my point. But who is it up to? And when do we cut off the freedom of people to decide? In other words, let me just say it, and I will end this, Staggerson, so that I can not suck up all the oxygen. But right now in Washington State, you can drink the pine sappy tasting shit and die in front of your family. And I'm all for that, because you're a human being deciding that it's time to end your life because you ain't going to live anyway. That said, if you can support this, well, I feel for the child. I wish that all the Somali refugee children had wonderful homes. They don't. And this child, grow up, people, parents of Charlie Gard, let him pass on. Deal with your remorse. Don't make it so the state and society have to force you to, because then it takes rights away from other people that may have a little bit more better chance than you do, which is nil. That's what I meant.
And I think this is a really tough specific situation, because I always I'm against the parents that don't vaccinate their kids and then the kid dies. I think that's insane. I think that's child abuse. Or when they take them to a faith healer instead of a hospital, I think that's child abuse. I mean, we have laws. Your kid has to be fed. Your kid has to go to school. You can't beat your kid. You know what I mean? You can spank them, but you can't bash them and just beat them. But in this case, it's a really hard one, because you've got the state and the hospital, I guess, saying that it's time to let go, and the parents are on the side of life. But I think that maybe suffering is just a hair more important than death. That's where I fall at the end of this. I think that the suffering needs to end.
Yeah, I mean, in that regard, I think I do come down on the side of the courts and the hospital. But basically, you know, what are we doing here? You know, I mean, if suddenly, you know, if basically they have allowed them to sort of provide evidence that basically, look, if there is this experimental treatment in America, if you can in any way provide any evidence that this would work, then we would be open to it. But if this is just, you know, a kind of a last straw on which one wishes to clutch at, or worse, if this is just an attempt to get to a different jurisdiction.
Oh, that would be worse. Yeah.
You know, then we're not really playing ball with that. And as I say, no one is blaming the parents. Everybody kind of understands that, you know, it's the desperation to save one's child.
Yeah, but that goes deep.
Sometimes that can also blind you to consequences.
It doesn't have to come to blame, though. It's this idea that all of us human beings, I have my own strange crotchets of belief, Britisher. You and I will not go into it now. But we've talked about it personally. And I have my own strange crotchets of belief. It is probably because I don't like the idea of my life being snuffed out. So to put myself in these parents' shoes, yeah, it's very tough. But should there be legislation that says even if these parents don't, you know, if they have even if these parents have the funds to carry on the insanity they want to carry on, should society then step in and say, no, we will now pull the plug whether you like it or not? Even though you could go to the Philippines and let the witch doctor pull the squids out of your stomach with the fake blood thing they do.
Hey, man, that's I don't feel qualified to answer that question.
None of us are qualified. None of us are qualified. So I just want
to. I'm just saying, I wouldn't. Thank God it doesn't rest on me. But I would say just the logical thing. I would just go, look, man, less suffering. Sorry, you know, because I actually had to go through this with my mother and my own father. Granted, they weren't infants, but both my mother and father, it did actually fall on me. You know, like with my dad. Since I was the one that had I was the healthcare proxy.
Thank God it fell on you, sir.
And with my mother, it was the same thing. At one point, I had to decide to stop the chemotherapy. So and that's where it really does become, and that's amazing. That's the other thing. When I remember a lot of family members who, you know, when you're at a family dinner and you're having this conversation about pulling the plug, everybody always says, oh yeah, we'll pull the plug. Sure, pull the plug. When the time actually comes.
Sorry about this.
That's right. When the time actually comes, it's very difficult. And that's where you have to be, you have to be a pragmatist at the fullest extent. Because I knew that I'll spare you guys the details with my parents, but yeah, it does come to a point where you're like, dude, you have to let it go. Now, for that to fall on the state, that's the problem. Because you would hope that at least the father or the mother would have been a little bit stronger and been like, look, man, this is we're making this child suffer.
Yeah, it's
you know.
And like you just said, Nachi, to let that fall on the state, that's a dangerous path to go down.
Can I sort of cut in here, because I'm not really sure to a certain extent that it necessarily represents a danger, because I'm not sure that this actually sets a legal precedent. I think basically these cases are kind of all judged on their sort of individual merit, as opposed to creating law that will count in future cases. Do you understand what I mean?
death panel. It's a death
Yes, yeah, I get it. Okay,
It's a
yeah.
death
So it's sort of like the state stands up, makes their case. The parents stand up, they make their case, and whoever this society just all tries to figure it out together.
Somebody has to be King Solomon. Somebody actually needs to make the decision. And in that regard, it will always eventually fall on the court, won't it?
It's your basic
absolutely.
death panel, you know, it's eugenics. It's just your basic school book eugenics.
By the way, Britisher, how much do you know about this case with Charlie and I think it's Ward, right?
Charlie Gard.
What's how much do you know about the pain that this kid is going through? And
well, this is just it. No one really knows for sure. This is just it. This is one of the things. I mean, you know, I've not been sitting in the courtroom per se. I've only sort of caught.
No, but I was wondering if over there, if maybe with the press, you guys just got much more information.
Yeah, I would say that the media has said that seems to be the kind of the overriding issue. This is one of the problems that's being put forward.
Yeah, this child. I'm going to screen share this. This child looks like
really
it's really
know whether this child is suffering or not.
Yeah, because he's like in a vegetative state.
Yeah, and you know, for how long can you keep this going? And as the hospital itself has actually got a very good reputation when it comes to looking after children that are very, very ill.
Well, and Charles Krauthammer was just saying, man, he was on Tucker Carlson. He was on a ventilator for a little while. If you look at, if you know who Charles Krauthammer is,
I definitely.
If you watch him breathe, he definitely has COPD, so he knows what he's talking about. And he was like, as an adult that understood what was going on, to be on a ventilator, and they're showing a lot of really nice pictures of this kid. Don't get me wrong, I'm having to look, you know, but the fact of the matter is, this is Charlie Gard right now, folks. He's got a ventilator going into his nose. The child, as the Britisher says, his cranium is not growing at the rate that it needs to. He probably and right now they've got him with morphine and they got enough dope in this kid to knock me out, which is a lot. And so, of course, he's got this far away look, happy little baby that belongs to these parents. But I'm so sorry, guards. I'm so sorry, you parents. And just don't make this come down to something where 4 morons get on YouTube and start talking about how we might need the state to make you people let your child go. Sometimes we need.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here making all these bold declarations about it, and I can't even look at the fucking pictures, man.
No, it's tough, but it's true, mate. We should look at that, and we should realize that yes, baby seals get clubbed by people that need to make a living and sell you fucking baby seal shit.
Are they still doing that, by the way?
Sorry.
Are they still clubbing baby seals, by the way?
Well, I'm assuming sort of Eskimos and people like that still do it, but I think they pretty much have a limited market for it these days because of.
Well, they still kill as many now as they did in the 80s, but it's like the Britishers said, the Inuits and the Inupaks and the indigenous people, they're just like, you can't stop us from doing this. And yes, there's still a wonderful market. If anything, it may be smaller, but the prices are so much higher that it really is better that it's smaller, because the people that actually have to go out there, because they, we want to see this and we want to think about the parents, because who's suffering right now? The child's doped up. Look, I'm not going to go on to this. We need to come together and realize as a common humanity that there's certain things that we just have to do. And guards, as much as these pictures hurt even Staggerson Jags, the hard ass that he is, let it go. Just let it go. It's time to let go.
Well, I think it's one of those problems that has kind of cropped up on us with technology. That in so many cases, whether it be babies or whether it be elderly people, we are effectively almost capable of keeping them kind of technically living ad infinitum. And the more our medical expertise advances and provides us the ability to do that, the more important it becomes that we kind of have a moral switch inside us in which we basically say, enough's enough.
Yep. Know when to let, it's more important. Yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's coming back to the thing with my parents and what they went through. at the same time, I'm glad the state didn't decide that for me or for us. Like we were able to make that decision. And I think that is critical. And yeah, no, that's something that we're not going to figure out in a.
You've been pretty transparent, though, Nachi, and I watched one of your videos. I know I did, man. This is something I've seen in public, where you just mentioned that some in your family. I'm not even going to try to remember the relation they were to you. Where all these, you know, God forgive me, I'm speaking as a man because I love the Lord, but they were Jesus shouters. You know, they came in with this Jesus shouting nonsense, and we're going to pray over it. Isn't it? How would we deal with it then? Isn't it good that the state at least would step in then and say that Nachi Free now has the decision and he's in his right mind and it's time, and we don't allow other family members? Because in this state, another family member could have came in on you, bro, and they could have been like, "Oh no, we want auntie, so or we want our mom or whoever the relation was, and we think there could be a, you know, and give all of this other." So I guess what I'm trying to say is, in some ways, I'm okay with the state saying, don't stop Nachi or myself. I love my wife. I love my dog. I let my last dog, Nachi, go way beyond. I spent $1,800 to get a titanium rod put in a 16-year-old dog's leg when my veterinarian told me, the only reason I'm doing this for you is because you're a moron, Mr. Ogre, and I know you love your dog, but I'll take your money as long as you know that I'm just taking your money to do this surgery and it's good practice for me. You should let this dog go and put it to sleep. That was the last time. When my beloved Lily dog reaches that point where Thorn was, and man, listen, this might sound horrible to some people. So I just realized some people are always equating dogs with human beings, but this is the love that I know. This is the heartfelt love that I know. My beloved Lily dog. But when that time comes around again, and I want to say that I want to have the strength, and man, to if something happened to my beloved Mrs. Ogre, that I would let that time just pass, and that she'd do the same righteous thing for me, Nachi. I'm out of it here because this is I've got a really light topic on the last one, by the way, folks. I hope y'all enjoy it. But this is the worst thing that's come up in the news for me in the last month or two. Because only one person on this panel knows right now I'm about to be in the same exact position you're in, Nachi, and you're not the one that knows it. It's only going to be a matter of probably 6 months to a year before some shit that just got dropped down in my family will undoubtedly fall to me. And
oh, sorry to hear that, man.
Hey, but when that comes, I hope I say, hey, if I'm alive then, Nachi, right? Because I could fucking die. Who knows? We never know. We don't know the minute from the next. But if that time comes, I hope that I would have the same strength to meet it with dignity that you did, so I don't have to provide society with another crybaby, save the fucking babies bullshit. And yes, that's what this guard shit is. I'm with the Britisher. I'm with all y'all, man. I think. I don't know about Stag. He has not made it super clear to me. But it's time to let it go on this.
I agree with that. Yeah, I thought I made it clear that I feel like, personally, I feel like you should let the kid go. It is a really hard decision to try to say who that should fall to in this sort of situation. I think ultimately, if we're going to have a law about it or a precedent, that it should be that it falls to the parents ultimately. But that's, you know, gosh, it's a hard. It shouldn't have to go to the state. They should understand the situation and see the light of day and let their little baby go. Stop suffering.
So let's vote, Britisher. So who here on the panel believes that in a situation like this, it's not unreasonable for the state to step in and say, enough's enough, even if you can pay for it?
I think
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's not unreasonable for the state to step in. I fully understand how, when it comes to matters of the heart, people may react irrationally, and I think therefore that we need to extend a great deal of understanding towards these people. But yes, I think it's perfectly reasonable for the court to make the decision here.
I think I do too, because it just dawned on me. This is, of course, I wouldn't think of these parents as being child abusers, but you could almost argue the case that it almost becomes child abuse because I have to assume that the hospital knows how much that child is probably suffering, but impossible to show that since he's in a vegetative state. And plus, I'm all for the death penalty too. So, yeah, there does come a time where, for lack of a better word, because I don't really see it as the state, I see that as the collective will of society in the form of this day. And yeah, man, I think that's a real, yeah, it's a hard decision that sometimes needs to be made for you, and especially when it's affecting everyone else. They're taking away resources from cases that really could probably use, the hospital time.
We're talking about it right now. They're taking our actual time and consideration. We both know, see what I mean? They're taking so much from this, and they're getting on this platform to where, as you said, I agree with that, man. I shouldn't have piped in. I had a long diatribe. That is it, though. It's not the will of the state. It's the will of rational peoples the world over.
Yeah, and then that's what is the state, or what you would hope is the state.
Yeah, and I have to say, as much as it makes my balls retract up into my stomach, I guess it's reasonable for the state to step in this situation at the end of it. I could go on a long explanation about it all, but that's my answer. I agree.
Well, that's great, because I'll tell you what, one thing else, we have a Britisher here. The British Empire has been good at something throughout the antiquity. It's being pragmatic. I believe I heard you use that word, Britt. There comes a time where you have to consider, and yeah, of course, but what do we always say? May saner heads prevail. And how could we possibly, with all due respect to this family, how could we possibly consider their heads to be sane while their child, their beloved child, their progeny is passing away before their very eyes? So there does come a time, and it will only, in the end, I believe, even this family, they will look back and they will say, yeah, it was best that we started the mourning process as something that we began to look back on instead of look forward on. And by the way, aren't these people capable of trying again? If they want to have a child, they want to have progeny, and then one day they can tell their child that has lived of the triumph of life, not of this tough time. Man, listen, I'm just going nuts now, man, because this makes me think of so many things. I actually wrote a sermon about this once, and I think I was just going off into that. I really was too. Sorry. I've written some things in the past, and once in a while it triggers memories. Not triggers me in a bad way. And this is one of those things. There's a time to everything, to every season it turns. There's a good song about that.
Turn. Hey, by the way, Britisher, what do you think about the single payer system? And are there any people in England? 'Cause I remember living there. I didn't need to deal with the national health system, but are there any people over there in England that are actually trying to do away with those single payer system, or is everybody pretty much on board? Like, no, this is the best of, the lesser of two evils, so to speak.
The problem with the system as it is as such, it has been shown to be pretty much the most efficient healthcare system in the world. It is also one of the worst funded healthcare systems compared to all the other comparable healthcare systems. So at one moment, it seems to be a good model, if only it were actually run properly.
Well, thanks to India, nobody beats America, sir. But you say it's one of the best. It may be one of the best. But
well, no. America is believed to have the best healthcare system in the world.
Okay, thank you. No, continue. Crack on. Sorry,
but
you're so British, man.
You're also, it is also the most expensive healthcare system in the world. There's huge inefficiency built into it. Yeah. So when it comes to how much bang do you get for your buck, the NHS in Britain is actually supposed to deliver the most bang for the buck that goes in. It's just that not enough bucks go in.
And here's my question. If America switches to a single payer, are we going to lose our quality of healthcare?
As long as enough money goes in, you shouldn't do.
I mean, we still have all the same facilities and all the same technology.
I mean, you know, you can imagine that it would be quite a switch to make, because I think one of the big problems with these kind of things is everybody, in a way, prefers to stick with the devil they know. The NHS was kind of created after the Second World War, when the first Labour government took over Britain and basically kind of decided, okay, we will introduce certain things that are, I think people in America would say, socialist. There's an interesting little story to that, because of course the only way that Britain ever managed to introduce this system, because Britain was broke after the Second World War, was with effectively Marshall Plan loans. Because Britain needed to recover, because you have to understand that you can have a British Empire, but if you just unfortunately happen to be within airplane distance of the German Luftwaffe, there won't be a lot left by the time the war is over, and it will take a tremendous effort in overcoming them. This was the big benefit that America didn't have. You know, America didn't have enemies within striking distance of her homeland. So what happened was Britain and pretty much the rest of Europe urgently needed loans. And I think they sent over Keynes, Maynard Keynes, the economist, to persuade the Americans to, you know, bestow upon them certain loans at favorable interest rates. And he wasn't really getting anywhere, particularly because the American government, the post-war government, was very skeptical regarding the fact that this was a Labour government, and they looked awfully socialist. They were waving red flags, for heaven's sake. And as it happens, the one person whom all Americans trusted, who had been voted out of office after the Second World War, was touring America, and it was Winston Churchill. And it was actually the leading senators and congressmen of the day. They asked Churchill round, and they had a talk with Churchill and said, look, these people here in Britain, they're asking for these loans, but they all look like a bunch of communists. And it was Churchill that said, it was actually Churchill that said, no, you don't seem to understand. Yes, they're socialists, but this is a completely different brand of socialism. And it was therefore due to the say-so of Churchill that Britain got the loans and was able to build things like the NHS. Sorry to go off on a tangent, but I just thought that might be of interest to people.
That was wonderful, and I don't know. You don't usually look at the chat, like the main chat and the thing where we're doing the thing, but Poison the Wells here, and listen, how on earth could both coexist? Because Poison the Well says single payer can work with the current system. So in other words, single payer could work with capitalism and having many, many, many different payers.
Okay.
So
yes.
Please, someone, especially
over here, you know, sometimes when you have something that needs doing, and there may be a long waiting list in the actual official NHS hospital or whatever, but there is a shorter waiting list in one of the private hospitals, then they may send you there.
If they didn't fool with the original system, so if you could, I don't even know, the idea that single payer could coexist with private
Well, I mean,
care.
put it like this. When Britain changed after the Second World War, now obviously that's a long way back, but when they changed from the private system to the state-run system, it wasn't as if they were suddenly closing down hospitals. So it can work, and already now, I mean, there is a thriving private healthcare market in Britain, and so for example, in our local hospital, they have got one of those, you know, scanners. I'm desperately trying to, you know, one of those tunnel things they kind of shove you into.
Yeah, MRI.
MRI, precise. Yeah, thanks. And that one isn't enough. So what has happened is for quite a while now, once in a while a big lorry turns up with a mobile MRI scanner in the back of the lorry. Now, of course, that is entirely privately financed, but it is paid for through the NHS system.
But British, hang on a second. Now, look, in Appalachia, I know of a person that, in other words, this is where Appalachia, you're familiar with the Appalachian Mountains, and if you're not, Americans should be. I'm not going to go into that. But
Bluegrass country.
Yes. In Appalachia right now, well, bluegrass country would go to the rolling hills of Kentucky, but you got it. You mean bluegrass music. So yes, the Appalachian country, as I know it, there's one pastor that I know of, and there's many of these things that go down, and they have, because down there you can get all kinds of government assistance, but it never covers your teeth, mate. And so they go down and they pull old teeth and make new implants and give dentures and try to tell people not to drink so much bloody Mountain Dew. And we're going to get to somebody that drank so much bloody Mountain Dew.
I wonder why you mentioned that.
Well, you know why. And so and all these things, and they help them out. We have Britisher. Here's the issue that I have. They have coincided before Obamacare came to be a thing. There was something called it was called Midland Health Care. You had Plan A and Plan B. That's gone. I know musicians that could prove they were musicians. They made 300, 400 quid a week if they were lucky. They got their rent and everything. And they would go and they would get all. That's gone. And that was all funded by the Alden B. Dow Foundation from Dow Chemical. I mean, I know the people. I know them people too. I know some of their family that funded it, as well as I know people that benefited from it. But look. It's stomping out the idea that I should take care of my neighbor. If I consider that my neighbor is already well taken care of by the government, well, then what do I need to do? I don't need to do nothing.
No, but that's the thing, man.
Look, I'm going to go off on a tangent too, Britisher, because here we go. To wrap, I want to wrap this up too and get final words on this, because we're going to go into this last fun thing. And Britisher's had a deathly cold. I thought he fucking died yesterday. I was putting your picture out on Twitter.
I was close.
Like, anybody seen this man? Tell me if you've seen this man. I had your picture up there from Nachi too. Let's tell me if you've seen this man. I'm lost without my brother. I think he's died. He's got a summer cold. Okay, so anyway, so I don't get off on that tangent. They're taking away something, not they. I always use they because I have my own ideas of who they may be in the Hegelian dialect. Everybody said blah, 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 go on to the fucking Bohemian Grove and Skull and Bones and start telling you how George W. Bush is related to Obama and every damn thing else. Nobody wants to hear that, right? Nobody wants to hear that shit.
No one wants to hear it. Move on.
Wants to hear that shit. So there comes a time where we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And it's come time in this situation. We can tie it into the national healthcare system or say that America should do the same thing. No, we had great systems before it happened. And the only thing that putting governmental installations in that assure security is that it takes away the need for the rest of the community to give security to those that need it in their community. It's such a self-fulfilling prophecy. And good Lord, if anyone has anything to say on that, fine. But after everybody has their last word on this whole deal, we're off this baby thing, because good Lord, they need to let him go, and personal responsibility should rule.
Well, I think that the single payer system and socialized healthcare is society providing security for itself. That is, I mean, it's not individuals taking the responsibility, but there's got to be a balance, of course, because, you know, like you see with the welfare system here in America, it gets abused. You know, I'm not going to go one way or the other on that issue, but it does. It gets abused. And it seems like if you just gave everybody access to, people are going to start to lose responsibility once you give them free stuff. But I think that healthcare is a special situation. Who's going to the you know, people aren't just going to go to the hospital for no reason, and if they do, they're just going to get turned away. So I think I'm for a single payer healthcare system. I want to put that. That's what I want to say about that. I'm not for socialism in many areas of society, especially not the economy, but I am certainly for socialism in the healthcare thing. don't know that much about it, though.
Did you guys hear me, first of all? I was having trouble before.
Nachi, any thoughts?
Yeah, can you
Yeah,
hear
if
me
that's
or-
it, we'll move on.
I can barely hear you, Nachi. I can hear you ever so faintly. I don't think anybody else can hear you.
Maybe I'm gonna come out and come back in.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right,
yeah,
Groovy,
no,
that means
I got
when he
it.
gets. Oh, go ahead,
yes,
Brett.
I mean, basically, I think what it is particularly the American view of the NHS seems to be. It seems to be sort of two devils. One seems to be the impression that people get from something like Fox News, that it's kind of some kind of communist hellhole. The other seems to be what some people might have picked up from watching Michael Moore, where it is some sort of nirvana where perfect healthcare is provided to everybody.
Yeah,
Now,
go to Cuba and you see the best.
yeah, I mean, neither of those two are true. Now, when it comes to the NHS in reality over here, now it isn't Cuba. Let's put it straight. You know, it's a decently run service, but it has its problems. Two problems spring to mind. One is officialdom sets in. The moment you basically hand kind of any sort of state money to something, to some kind of institution, something happens. Everybody becomes a kind of, public service worker. And we all know that sort of efficiency starts dropping off. Now, because government has constantly kept on top of it, and we've had reform after reform, the NHS has actually been kept magically efficient. But there is at times an attitudinal problem within the kind of within the system itself. Now, I can't think of the second point anymore because I've just talked my own way out of it.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah, there are
You're doing good,
pluses
Trevor.
and there are minuses.
I'm over-
It's neither the devil nor is it some sort of fix-all.
Well, here it is, Brett. What I was trying to say that I didn't do well in a long time, I could say very quickly. We've had that here for decades. We've always had something in place, be it Medicaid, Medicare, like I talked about Midland Healthcare A and B, and societies all over, the dentists that go into Appalachia and give dentures to people that drink too much freaking Mountain Dew and snort too much daggone Oxycontin. We've always had that here. As we try to implement this for whatever, and I'm not arguing with you, mate, for whatever reason, Canada, they're failing, dude. Every country that has what you have outside of maybe Scandinavia, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, they're failing horribly. And the Scandinavia is just barely making it. England, for whatever reason, they're making it well. And by all accounts, and from that, I mean yourself, Tigerson, Cabbage Patch Bastard, and Sydney Roughtime, and they've all told me the same thing. Yes, you can go get private care here if you want. It's not outrageously expensive. But if you want to just get care, it's here too. For whatever reason, we're not doing that in the rest of the world, mate. We had that here without talking about it, and now it's being quashed. So I don't know, man. If y'all want to talk more about this, it's fine too. I've got another hour and a half, but I don't know how much time we want to waste. That's myself coming out into it. Because look, I'm a farmer. I weed weeds, and I'm always solving problems on the farm. So when I come back here and mentally try to solve problems with, especially people like I have gathered here with me, and I mean that in the much respect I can give, because I do have 3 of the gentlemen that I know in the world that I watch their stuff. I know kind of who they are, at least where they're coming from, and I respect it very much. I don't know. It gets a little old, though. We can't solve everyone's problems. I'm sure we can agree on that. But we did all agree about 20 minutes ago, that we do believe in this case with Charlie Gard, society should be stepping in and saying, look, it's time to let go. The balloon has gone up. The smoke has risen. The spirit has flown. It's all over. We feel for you. We've lost loved ones also. But saner heads right now, i.e. a hospital. What's the name of the hospital, Britisher?
Great Ormond Street, I believe.
Yeah, Great Ormond Street, which is, to the way the British talked about it, it's just like our Mayo Clinic or Johns Hopkins. It's a hospital that's known for taking care of children. If they're known for that and they're saying, and the end is imminent, and if you try to prolong it, you will prolong a vegetable. Well, it's over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk more. One of these days, I promise everyone here, especially Nachi, because Nachi's so far is the only person that I have seen while they were talking about our issue here with Obamacare. You had the whole chart out there, Nachi, like $1,700 for the gold plan a month. I mean, you had the whole thing out there. Like, yeah, sure, this is what it's come to, though. And before Obamacare, shit, man, no, I can't even imagine. You could be a single white male making $500,000 a year, and you could go out and pay on your own and get health care insurance for $450, $500 a month. That would be tops, and that would cover 90-10. Now 90-10's out the window. So anyway, blah 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 blah. Hey, what's going on in your world, Nazi, down in little Havana down there in the hot south that is Miami Beach?
Can you guys even hear me? Because I've been having issues.
Oh, you came in there. You're a little quiet. I'll crank you up in the sound booth. As long as you can hear yourself and you're good, I could hear you. I'm going to crank you up right now, though.
Okay, you guys can hear me then?
Yes, we can hear you. You sound a bit muffled, as though you're talking through a pillow, but yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, shit, what a fucking shame, man. I'm trying to... this fucking...
No, that's better. That should be better.
It's better now, yeah.
Okay, better now? Anyway, what I was going to say, don't worry. If you guys want to get off the whole single payer thing, we can get off that and go on to Boogie 2988 with his fucking Mountain Dew, which is going to bring us back to single payer, I guarantee you. We start talking about that, we'll fucking end up back on single payer. Here's the thing. And I like that guy. I really do. And you know, one thing I would love to talk about that guy, if you guys want to, with the whole thing. Ooh, I love that. I've seen that picture of that chick playing tennis. That is great. Anyway, I would love to get back to the whole thing with Boogie 2988, especially with Anita Sarkeesian and the way he just, oh my God, I have respect for him, but he almost emasculated himself in that video, dude. It's like, bro, you do not have to claim that you're a white male with privilege. And anyway, I'm going off the rails. The point that I wanted to make.
Keep going, Nazi. Keep going, brother.
On Boogie 2988 or on the single payer? I want to say
it's okay. You were on a little roll there. Just
keep on going on Boogie.
No, on Boogie. Okay, well, on Boogie, man, did you guys? I'm assuming you guys have all seen the video after fucking ShitCon 2017 when he was talking about how he met. It's the video called "I Met Anita Sarkeesian." And he is fucking tiptoeing with every single word, and like, oh my God, I didn't want to.
Yeah, he's such a nice guy, Nachi. You're right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I do not want to belittle him or anything like that. I wish.
No, but I get you. He's just such a sweetheart. He was Go ahead. Let me not cut in again. Go ahead.
No, the whole point. I'm a very big believer in do no harm, but take no shit. And it's a shame. It's a shame I cannot inject into him the ability to say, hey, you fucking cunt, shut the fuck up and stop trying to step on other people's rights. That's the problem with Anita Sarkeesian and with him.
Yeah, because he has that huge platform. He could easily do that. Because you look at Sargon, the one that got attacked, he's got 600, 700,000 followers, subscribers. Daggone Boogie's got 4 million.
Yeah, no, he's made a business of it. I have to assume that a large degree of it is that's his livelihood. So he wants to be careful. I get that. But dude,
if you have how much, and I'm not just calling into question, brother. But I love Boogie. I've watched a lot of his shit. This is what I'm going to say without trying to lead you and whatever, trying to hammer you. He is such a fucking pushover, Nachi. He's the guy that didn't even do nothing wrong to you, but and you're like, give me a pizza, man. And he gives you a fucking pizza. You know what I mean? The guy is just but I'm with you. I wish he would have just, for this Anita thing especially, used his platform and what happened to just bring a little more light to who the real bullies are.
Oh, exactly.
Let me disagree with you guys a little bit on that one. I really liked the way he handled it. And he told the story about how he sat down with Anita and he told his side of it. I thought, in my estimation, he told his side of it very well without belittling Anita. And I didn't feel like he was tiptoeing. I just felt like he was making a point to treat it the way he did.
No, and he probably made himself look better and made her look even meaner and more of the bully that she actually is, or, in my opinion, the authoritarian personality type that she clearly is. She's a megalomaniac.
I think when it comes to, you know, he made 2 videos, didn't he? First, he made the one against which there were a lot of objections. And then he made a second one in which he kind of acknowledged, look, I think the last video I put out, I think I need to say something because I've never had that many dislikes on any video before.
Stronger. Yeah, he said a bit stronger.
And he kind of came out a little, you know, a little stronger. But I think he particularly dropped the jargon, because I think one of the things that particularly sort of, you know, stuck in the craw of quite a few people was the fact that he was using terms like cisgendered white male and things like that, where that is kind of progressive social justice, Anita Sarkeesian language. And I think that's where people reacted, because they felt sort of, well, hang on a moment, you sound as if you've pretty much subscribed to this way of thinking because you're using their own terminology as though it were correct.
And let's call it for what it is. It's regressive. I mean, I think that's the simplest thing, because a lot of times I always feel like, these are liberals, but not really. They're to the left, and I think it's just regressive behavior is what it is. They think they're being progressive, they're not.
I think when it comes, you know, when it comes to Boogie, you have to kind of cut him some slack, because
for sure, it's not what he does.
Here is somebody who has got, you know, really almost crippling anxiety disorder.
Yeah,
right. No, which is probably
therefore has got a real problem with it.
And he's out there in a buggy, no less. He's got these crippling. Carry on, Brett, but he's out there in this buggy. I mean, if you put yourself in his shoes, holy fuck! I'm not going to white knight for the fat fucker. I'm just going to say that, man. Holy fuck, man! Really, it shows who the bullies are for sure. Sorry,
for sure, yeah. No, and I guess in a way,
well, Britisher said he's got this crippling. I want you to continue with your idea, man. I hate to jump in because it does. I had to listen to you, Brett, and go back and see that, yes, he's been making videos for a fucking coon's age. Because I watched, remember we were talking, I was like, well, I've watched his videos and he seems so free and easy. You were like, well, yeah, Mr. Ogre, but you don't realize that he's built up to this. Now he's up into the public, being this person that no one, whether you agree or disagree with him, you can't, unless it's like Nachi just did and I do too, you can't really disagree with his delivery outside of saying he's a little too meek sometimes. Which, good Lord, if you want to err on one side or the other. So, man, I'll just keep going, Britisher. So carry on with your idea. If you want.
I think he kind of, particularly in this second video he made, he kind of acknowledged that. And he sort of said, look, this is kind of one of the problems with anxiety disorder, that you will kind of try to never step on anyone's toes. You are kind of always trying to go the way of least resistance. And you have to take into consideration, of course, that he had really bad anxiety when it came to meeting Anita Sarkeesian, because he knew from, you know, what he had seen in videos and what he'd heard about her, just what a kind of harridan he would have to expect. And for someone like him, it was a real problem. I mean, he several times, even while he was at VidCon, was close to just cancelling and saying, I can't do this. So just the fact that he managed to get on stage with Anita Sarkeesian was a kind of a triumph in itself, that he managed to overcome this kind of crippling psychological condition. The fact that
and then his nightmare came true.
Yeah, the fact that she then took it out on him was kind of, you know, it was the ultimate bullying experience, I would sort of say. But even then, he is still the person with the anxiety disorder. He is still, even when he is trying to retell this story, he is the person who is almost kind of not wanting to give any cause for it to repeat itself. So he is kind of trying to appease the bully while he is doing it, just so that she might not lash out again.
Yeah.
And I think that was what people then took offense to, because they kind of said, well, hang on a moment, you're sounding like her.
No,
And
he
I
was
think
just in
that's where
defensive
he
mode.
felt he needed to kind of correct the position a bit.
Well, but like you said, he was in defensive mode, man. I mean, he was totally in the mode that I just want this to end. I got to say something about it because undoubtedly other people seen it. You know what I mean? And that's another bummer to me, Britt. You have this odious, disgusting human being on one side that is, look at my platform and look at my titties and my vagina and how fucking great I art. And you know, on the other side, you have Boogie, who's like, yeah, I am who I am. And that's how he got so popular and so famous, Britt. Yeah, I am who I am. I'm a big fat guy. I'm gonna fucking do some crazy characters and just and then tell you what I think about stuff and be nice. And holy shit, man. I loathe folks that would do something like that to somebody like this.
Mr. Ogre. I'm gonna have to leave. Thanks for having me on. It was good to talk to you gentlemen again. I'd stay all day, but I know you guys might do this all day, so maybe I'll jump back in later if that's okay.
Okay. See you then.
Well, I got like 40 minutes in me and I got to go too, but thank you so much, Stag, for coming by, brother. Good to have you.
Yeah, no problem. We'll talk to you
Nice
later.
talking to you, Staggers.
Yeah, and I might want to stay on this, you know, that might be a cue that I might want to stay on this whole Boogie thing longer than everybody wanted to stay
Oh,
on.
he was pulling out a rifle there. Why'd you want to see the rifle?
Oh, he's just a guy. This is like one of his alter egos. He does a few different personas, you know, and he gives deliveries. And this is Jesse. This is his persona, Jesse. He's just like a crazy redneck that went underground into a cave because the apocalypse was coming. I mean, this guy's nuts.
So even I'd hate to say it, and I don't mean to come down on the guy or anything. So even in his personas, he's still hiding. He's like in a bunker. Like this other, you would think, hey, look, I got a persona. This is the persona that's going to step on fucking Anita Sarkeesian. No, and I don't. And like I said, man, I have a lot of respect for the guy. He's made a business out of this. I don't follow his videos. I've just stumbled into some of his videos whenever I'm like looking up things on like YouTube analytics and how to make money off this shit. That's when he comes up on my radar when it comes to like making money and stuff like that, which is why I have respect for him. But yeah, I thought that video of his and the whole thing with Anita Sarkeesian, I thought that made a great psychological case study in the bullying tactics of these regressives and how sad it is that there are many people who will not stand up to it, you know?
Well, I think in this case, she really just found the ideal person to pick on.
Oh, yeah. And that's what they do. That's what they do.
I think, you know, in that regard, when it comes to someone like Sargon, if she would have not just shouted at him from up on high on a stage, but like with Boogie, if she would have gone back, you know, gone off stage and then suddenly had a go at him, you know, there was very good reason that didn't happen between Anita Sarkeesian and Sargon of Akkad, because she knew that he would give as good as he would get. Whereas with Boogie, there she had a completely helpless character.
Yeah, that's for sure. If she didn't want to try that shit with Sargon backstage,
no, she would avoid him. She would avoid him entirely.
Well, it's like, and British and I, we've talked. British just showed a picture, and there's a really great picture of Sargon out in the crowd, and I've tried to reproduce the face, but it's something to the effect of, and he's not laughing. He ain't said a daggone mumbling word, but he is very British in his composure, which is to say he's pretty much letting her know with his body language, you just lost. You just made me look way better than I probably really even am. And I don't know what to say. But yes, no, she would not have tried that shit with the Sargon backstage, Brett, wouldn't have. She wouldn't have tried it.
She would avoid him. And she avoided, from what I understand, you know, because this is the shit about YouTube that I don't like getting into, all the drama and all that fucking, like, I don't want to know who Anita Sarkeesian is. You know what I'm saying? I wish I didn't know who she was. And there's quite a few of these other YouTubers that I'm like, ugh, because I want to talk about ideas. I want to solve problems and, of course, make money and make drawings and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but not Dogma, though, right, brother? I mean, Dogma's got nothing to do with it.
No, or expose Dogma. In her case, expose Dogma. That's why I think she's almost, it's not that she is worth talking about, the dogma that she spews is worth exposing and debunking. That's what I think. And she unfortunately has quite a platform. And people like her will always. Her and who's this other one? Fucking Linda Sarsour is another one. But of course, she's beyond YouTube now.
Oh man, you talking about that Muslim woman? Jihad.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude.
Sarsour.
And I did not
know
know
about that. Do you know about that woman, Britisher? Have you seen that?
Yes, I've heard of her, and I just saw her yesterday, I think, and she brought up precisely jihad, and you thought, there's a very uncontroversial word to use.
And remember the woman that was, the guy, the lady that freaked out on Humongous? Everybody remember her?
Yes. H3H3 had a nice video out on her just in the last 1 or 2 days, I believe. Because they found footage of what went on in the actual council meeting before the event, where she then started flipping out with Mr. Humongous, in which it actually became clear that already at the council meeting, she was completely off her head, and they were trying to bully him. So it was, the idea that this was just a coming together after the meeting was completely, that was completely destroyed.
Well,
but it was quite clear that he was targeted right from the start.
All of them have funding, Brett. I just getting it in here. This is a Binary Surfer saying, did I know that Sarsour had funding through the ACLU or was backed by the ACLU? No, but I guarantee you this I don't even know the freaking crazy lady's name with Humongous. And the funny thing is, Brett, is I remember Humongous, the cool dude that was like, what's your name? And she's like, Humongous. I remember him, but I don't even know her name.
So anyway, can you guys see this screen that I put up of Linda Sarsour said jihad in a speech and conservatives freaked out?
Oh yeah, you're presenting right now, sir.
Right. So then, and it's by a woman named Antonia Blumberg, and I'm going to assume, good thing that I got Ogre here to let me know if this sounds anti-Semitic or not, which I am not at all. But I'm assuming Blumberg, that last name, that's probably Jewish, right? She's probably Jewish.
No, that's Jewish. You're not anti-Semitic. That's very Jewish, sir.
So anyway, I gather that this Antonia Blumberg is one of these probably self-loathing white people, I'm assuming, and like she's comparing Linda Sarsour to Martin Luther King. Like here, after his "I Have a Dream" speech, the FBI considered Martin Luther King the most dangerous. Dude, these people are making false equivalences of on the grandest scale, and it's just amazing. It's amazing how some people really are bending over backwards to
In fairness, jihad can at times be used in other terminology.
Right here it is.
In another context other than in the ISIS context. But in all fairness, at this day and age, it is a very, very poor choice of words.
True. No, and I wouldn't doubt that she calculated that. I wouldn't doubt that she thought to herself, just like Donald Trump did. That's how Donald Trump, played the media like a fiddle. I'm sure before he said any of those things, like fucking, the illegal Mexico is sending us, rapists and murderers. I'm positive he sat down with his lawyer and he's like, okay, how do we strategize this like 3 or 4 steps ahead? And how do you think the reactions are going to be? And I wouldn't be surprised if Linda Sarsour did the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised. She's like, I'm going to see the word jihad. They're going to come back with this, and then I'm going to come back with that. Wouldn't be surprised if they did that. But it's just amazing how they're subtly trying to push. They're trying to normalize things like Sharia law. And she's trying to, if I'm not mistaken, she's like trying to go ahead and like champion the idea of allowing Muslim children in American schools to have their time out for prayer and stuff. And it's like, dude, we're trying to minimize government in this country. We don't need more fucking government, much less Sharia law. Okay, and it's amazing to me that the generation of millennials that are working in journalism that have these positions, like in the fucking Huffington Post.
And fair warning, somebody's probably coming in here, Britisher. The Zero Cool may be coming in, so brace yourselves. Oh, there he is. Speak of the devil, and up he jumps.
Okay, so I just sort of thought, well, we'll let Nachi finish, and then we'll sort of see whether we can sort of drift this back to Boogie, because that was actually supposed to be the topic.
I hate this thing.
Yeah, no, you get back there.
You're damn right, Brisher. That's why you're the co-host here, and I'm the co-host, because you're the only one here besides myself that has 3/4 of a brain. Well, that means between the two of us, we got 1.5 brains.
I don't know what I got, maybe an 8, but
Oh, we're all oh, look, he left. He left that quick. I gave a warning. Oh, there he's back. So I'm not sure, but Zero Cool sent me a little thing, and he wanted to come in. Here he is, man. What's up, Zero? Did you like the Zero Hero? I see you sent me even a better one, but that was so good. I got spammed on that one. The Zero Hero thing I sent. Like trying to get me to
yeah, you got spammed, all right, buddy.
Every day.
Okay, so normally thank you for having me here. It's been a while. I normally like to keep my nose out of this kind of thing because reasons, and it does burn me out. So it's good to see Nachi free and the Britisher again. It's always a pleasure to see. Always a pleasure to see the Three Stooges here. Then I show up like Jerry Lewis. I'm going to say 3 very blunt things. One, the only reason, first and foremost, I don't have a problem with what's his name. I think he cucked out, and I think whether it was a strategic move to save himself a problem or not, he shouldn't have said anything. He should have just stuck to the topic and not given Anita Sarkeesian any power. Because he did. I'm sorry. And I don't have a personal problem with the guy. I don't subscribe to his channel. I just saw that, and I'm like, why is this, whatever. He said the wrong thing at the wrong time, in my humble opinion. That's just it. It's my opinion. Secondly, Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn, and people like that, they're as long as you let them have anything to say, as long as you allow them to sit anywhere and say anything whenever they want, and you allow them to sneak out the back door, the longer they're going to be a plague upon our society. I do not believe that violence is an immediate solution. I do not believe that violence is the ultimate solution. However, I would dictate that she needs a punch in the face. I don't care who does it. And here's the reason why I think she needs a punch in the face and a slap in the mouth easily. She helps continually, and people that do this all the time, no matter who they are, there's always a bigger fish. She continually thrives in a society where dangerous ideologies are becoming, or have become, an everyday acceptance. When 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I was still a late teenager, they were not accepted and were not allowed for a very good reason. They promote discord, disharmony, and are basically damaging to our psyche and have continually led us down the road to become an apathetic nation. Not that we are a pathetic nation. The belief that, oh, somebody else will take care of this, or, oh, I don't have to do this, or whatever. It's become the mentality of apathy, which has plagued American society since I was a teenager. Now, if I were to ever meet Anita Sarkeesian, I would probably just say, I'd tell her, you fucking suck. There's nothing you can do about me saying what I said. Take me to court. You will lose. And she would lose. And I'll tell you why she will lose. I am older than she is. I'm smarter than she is. I've been on this planet in different circumstances than she has, much like everybody else. Everybody's got their own life experience. And I do not fear her. And I do not fear the legal repercussions of anything. I'm tired of her crap, and I would tell her so. Now, would I smack her one? Absolutely not. If she tried to touch me, then I'd probably restrain her as my God-given right as an American citizen to defend myself. But people, when they give her power, they give Linda Sarsour power, and they protect her in any way, shape, or form, they gain the continual momentum to plague and destroy our nation. They are enemies of the state, and they should be taken out. And by taken out, they need to be called bullshit on. And you have to continually fight, no matter how much it wears you down. You have to continually fight in the press against the stupid people, and it is a long-running battle and crusade, but progress does get made. Now, the third and final thing I'll say is, and I'm not saying let's go back to the subject. I've put my comments in the chat on YouTube. Medical care before Obamacare was great. Now, it's the problem with a lot of things is in. I was talking to Poisoning the Well. Yeah, I agree. I just don't understand how he got his credit destroyed because of it. But that's the American system of not being on the gold standard and credit in general. But for most of us, we had our insurance through our jobs, and we were able to go out and get supplemental insurance, not through the state, but through Blue Cross Blue Shield and all these dental plans at reasonable prices. Obamacare, so everybody wants to, change stuff, fix stuff, go to a single, whatever. No, it was fine before Obamacare came along. The problem is we've lost jobs over the past 25 years that have been shipped out to other countries, thus widening the gap between rich and poor. And that's why people have the issues they have, why they have to eat cheaper food. They're not, and because of that, they're not encouraged to go out and exercise and do all the things that they're supposed to do to avoid problems in regards to the medical ground, to avoid having pre-existing health care issues according to Obamacare and medical care in general. When you destroy the food source and you encourage a lack of exercise and basically getting out there and doing things, it doesn't matter what healthcare system you have. That's your primary problem. So that's all I've got to say about all that. I give the floor back to you guys.
Well, let me just jump in really quick. If you want to, sorry for the shameless self-promotion, but my little live stream that I'm going to do tonight at 9 p.m., I still don't know exactly what to title it, but I guess in short, I'm going to say in defense of single payer. And dude, I'm saying that as a guy whose family is Cuban. I am in no way, shape, or form trying to promote socialism. But now that I'm self-employed, or something like that, did I just say that? Now that I'm between jobs, is like to be self-employed.
Same thing.
Freudian slip. Now that I'm in between jobs, I am finding, dude, how difficult it is to get insurance and how expensive it is. Granted, Obamacare, it has something to do with that. But I get the feeling that before Obamacare, it would have been just as expensive. It's very difficult.
Well, as a person that's owned his own business for about 2 decades, I can tell you.
Okay, you tell me. How was it?
Sir, it was much, much cheaper before. Now, my wife, who should be here now and on part-time, is working full-time just so we can have health benefits. Because even though, in all honesty and transparency, neither one of us have to work for money, but the health insurance thing, we don't know when something's going to go wrong with us. So she continues to work, and she does make money. It's wonderful to get extra money, right? Everybody can agree with that. And we get health benefits that are less now than they were before with her job. And I can't fucking afford what I used to be able to do easily 10 years ago. So no, Nachi, it's not the same, mate. When they started making it so that the benefits that you showed on your page, the benefits you can get through the state suck.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. I think this is a problem with Obamacare itself, but the problem was before Obamacare. And believe me, I'm not trying to get on a Bernie Sanders platform, because for me, it's not a matter of morality. For me, it's a matter of pragmatism. And there was a lot of people that could not be on healthcare. There was a lot of people who were off healthcare, and it wasn't simply because they just chose to not be on healthcare and they were taking a chance. It was very expensive for a lot of people to be on healthcare. If there is a way of,
now it's more expensive.
Yeah, no, of course, and it's more expensive because of the Obamacare.
And some
for sure.
people say they've got healthcare, which means 60-40 coverage. I mean, that's not healthcare. If you're paying 60% of the bill, look into what lung cancer costs, or I mean anything. Look what it costs to go to the emergency room because your leg got cut off in a motorcycle accident. I mean,
but he was the other thing. The other problem before Obamacare, that pre-existing conditions would not be covered, and they've
got that covered though. Now that's being taken care of with, and besides that, if you sign it, Nachi. So if I sign an agreement that says if I have pre-existing, if I sign the agreement and pay the premium, and it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions, that's my problem. You can pay, which I can't speak to this as I did the other things, but I'm going to bet that if you paid the extra for pre-existing conditions before this insanity came about, it would still be less, and it still wouldn't be 60-40 fucking coverage.
Can I chime in 2 cents here real quick? I think that one thing that people need to remember about so-called pre-existing conditions is I don't have any stats. I just know what I know about myself, and I've heard a lot of people say the other things, say similar things. Pre-existing conditions are oftentimes, from what I've heard and seen, are genetic, and that how your bloodline is, what your grandparents did, and how they lived carries on to your parents, carries on to you. And while it is ultimately your responsibility to eat healthy and exercise and whatever, there are some things that are within us that we are going to get transferred over, even if it's from 5 generations ago, that are going to screw us over. Now, how can you deny the fact that genetics play a heavy factor into who we are, and to say that if you have a pre-existing condition, you should be denied when the pre-existing condition may be genetic?
That's not what they are, bro. What it is it's not what it is. Pre-existing conditions only covers if I don't have insurance, but I either had it or didn't have it before, and I had a stent put in my heart, okay?
Right.
And I say, that I've had heart problems. Well, if I sign on onto an insurance policy that doesn't cover pre-existing conditions, not with your ancestry, bro. I've never heard that. 0. And I don't think that exists. Not with your ancestry, but with yourself. So you've had, you name it. Anything that you had before you got the insurance policy that led to the thing that needs to be treated now. And they use a lot of loopholes, bro. The pre-existing thing.
Of course, they use a lot of loopholes.
Mr. Roga,
it has nothing to do with genetics.
Mr. Roga, Mr. Zero, can I say one word? Just one word. Boogie.
We can take this up on my live stream later on at 9
Precisely.
Yeah, and I'm about gone, Britt. I've got very, very little time left in me. I'm really going to stick to the schedule today. That said, I blew the last part of the schedule, didn't I?
Let's say it's a subject.
Well, that's not a leading statement. I don't know what is.
I think you feel. I think it's a subject you feel passionate about. Is it not?
Well, yeah. If you're going to change, because I watched the guy pour out a Mountain Dew, and I watched him drink his last Mountain Dew, and I wonder in my own mind. He didn't drink
his last Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I wonder if he really did. I hope he did.
No, he didn't.
Pardon me?
He didn't. He poured it away.
Well, he poured, so he didn't. Yeah, no, I've just watched him. He drank a little bit out of like a wine glass.
Yes, but he poured the wine glass away.
Oh, okay.
He pours it into his rubbish bin in the end, and he basically says, "Look, I've resolved that I don't need this. So this is supposed to be my last one, but frankly, if I don't need it from now on, then I don't need this one either."
That's a good point. So I'm assuming, is he like what? Is he going on some, I don't know, mission?
Yeah, he's now on a special diet because on the 25th he's going under the knife. He's going to have gastric bypass surgery.
Wow. How difficult, by the way, man, I wonder how difficult that is for some people to just discipline themselves. I mean, maybe I just take it for granted. I don't know. Maybe it's my metabolism, but I think
that has been one of the things that sort of Boogie has been, has talked about over the last 10 years, because he pretty much had a very traumatic childhood and whatever. And this left him with chronic anxiety disorder, but it also left him with a very, very unhealthy relationship with food, whereby it is kind of a psychological crutch. And the fact that he has got to the point that he is at now, where he can actually do these things, he can discipline himself sufficiently so that he can have this surgery. That is, it's tantamount to a miracle given where he came from.
Maybe I should probably look up a little bit more, but I know, and it's very easy for me to just snap my finger and say, you know what, man, it's a matter of discipline. Fucking get your shit together and man up. But I'm gonna play devil's advocate here real quick.
Yeah, I'm not disrespecting Boogie. Life sucks. Everybody goes through something different, but you know what? Boo hoo hoo. there are a lot of people who go through similar things that he does, or not. He has, not does. I apologize. That is very poor word choice. And they choose to either become foodies or drug addicts or something other, and then they realize the one inevitable truth: death is a great motivator. And I think somewhere in his mind, if he realized, he had a realization, he had an epiphany that says, if I don't stop this, if I don't take control of my own destiny, death is coming to my door sooner than it should. And I applaud him for getting gastric bypass surgery. Not everybody can afford that, but that is only a tool to help him become successful. And I think people need to realize that. So I wish him well, and I'm hoping he does great. And I'm hoping in a year from now we see a very much smaller Boogie. But again, death is a great motivator. That's what causes a person to change their eating habits.
Yeah, death is a good motivator. Well, yeah, and that's true. That's very true. I would just say that it takes a certain amount of, what you have to do is this. I decided I was going to quit smoking cigarettes. And so where you're seeing now is everything's set up different than it was before. Changed my drum set where it was. Everything in this room. In fact, a lot of things in my life I changed. The first thing I did was I threw away all ashtrays. Everything that would be, would look like an ashtray. I threw that away. And then I did buy a vaporizer. Everybody's seeing me vaping today. I did replace the one with the other. So I don't know what Boogie's change will be, but if he's going to succeed, and whether or not he's crying or whatever, whether or not whatever prompted this change in his life, if he's going to succeed, he needs a paradigm shift in his thinking. And hopefully everyone here knows what I mean by that. I don't mean a sea change. I hear that thrown around all the time now. He needs a paradigm shift in his thinking. He needs to change. This cookie is going to make Boogie feel better about who he is. Like the heroin addict needs to change. This spike in my arm is going to make me feel better about who I am. Like the gambler says, this 7 down Satan's alley is going to make me feel better about who I am. Like the alcoholic would say, this next drink will change my life and make me feel better. He has to have that paradigm shift, or Boogie will fail.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But that's what I don't know, I'm not a psychologist. I'm just another rube on YouTube, and all I can give is my life wisdom advice. And from seeing, one thing I have noticed with alcoholics that I've known, it seems like a refusal to accept maturity. I think that's one thing. It's like a refusal to, take on responsibility and stuff like that. At least with alcohol, I've noticed that. With eating, I wonder to what extent it's a pleasure center in the brain that somehow, some way, just and I forgot which are the actual, I don't know if it's endorphins or the sugar rush or whatever, but like for some people, eating a fucking cookie, it's like a heroin high apparently. And for other people like myself, having a cookie is like, whatever, that tasted pretty good, but I'm going to go jogging later on today to make sure I compensate for those calories. So I don't know. It's I know there's no easy answers, but I think honestly, dude, in the end, it really does come down to discipline. It really does come down to, you have to learn to control your emotional urges, man. And that paradigm shift comes with prioritizing rational thought over emotional urges.
Yes, I think it's moving away from a kind of culture of instant gratification, whereby you don't need that immediate hit of pleasure, but can basically tell yourself that you will get a longer term benefit for denying yourself that immediate pleasure. So I think in that regard, it's kind of delayed gratification instead of immediate gratification.
Right, right. And
But
staying
of course,
focused on your goals.
if you have already kind of normalized, you know, over a period of decades, a behavior, then it is very, very difficult to move away from that. And I think that's where the yoga comes in with talk of a paradigm shift. You are basically almost having to reinvent yourself to a certain extent in order not to simply fall back into the same routine that is the old you.
You got it, man.
For sure.
You have to become someone new with a different approach to what you want to stimulate your pleasure centers. When we talk about a change of habit, you know, when we consider, you know, at base what we really are, we're mammals that desire to reproduce, that want warmth and shelter and food and water. That's what we are. And at the top of those things, for whatever reason, for us mammals, it's reproduce. Everything revolves around that. You know, we get food for the female so that we can reproduce with her. We get shelter for the female so we can reproduce for her. We do all these things, and whatever it may be, that the end result is to reproduce. And Boogie, in his situation, maybe it's not to reproduce with, I don't know what if he wants to have kids. It goes deeper than that with us Homo sapiens.
I thought he did have kids.
It goes far well, let me you'll see where I'm going. It goes far beyond the desire to have progeny in the flesh and blood sense. It goes to the idea that we want to propagate what we see as reality. And right now, folks, there is a stark reality being drawn. Whether or not Boogie loses weight, I'm going to try to tie this into a little bit about the, you know, the whole, what we were talking about before about being shamed, you know. If I knew Boogie as a friend, if we were really close mates, of course, I would say, listen, Boogie, look at you, man. You got to, but I don't know him. So now where I'm left at is in the part of society that now cheers him on into this goal. And to attain this goal, he's going to have to shift everything that he knows and believes into a whole nother category. Every time he feels bad about the Sarkeesians of the world or whatever it may have been that drove him into this shell that he dwells in, when he thinks about these things, he has to break away from, you know, hey, you know, at risk of sounding light now in this kind of heavy diatribe, this piece of chocolate cake will make me feel better. Instead of that, you know, he has to, I do know. Let me not pussyfoot around like Boogie did in the first video he did with Leonardo. So let me just go this way. He has to say, in lieu of that chocolate cake, I'm going to get on the treadmill for 15 minutes. I'm going to do a video. I'm going to go and walk in the sunshine. I'm going to write a letter to an old friend, whatever that thing may be. And I did add a lot of exercise in there among writing a letter, whatever that may be. We as human beings have to replace every ill thing and every evil thing with a good thing. And I won't go on any longer. I'm not gonna make a big apologia for Boogie. Yes, has he gotten this into this position on his own accord? Of course he has. Has the person doing 20 years in some federal penitentiary for getting drunk and running over, you know, somebody on the street at a government installation, which made it federal, is yes. You can feel bad. You can change whatever it is that you have done short of a capital punishment. And Boogie, Britisher, as I go and try to get the wind out of my sails here, Boogie has not committed any capital punishment. This is a guy that I've said it before. I'll say it again. I watch a set amount of people constantly, and those people are Lionel Nation, Philip DeFranco, and Boogie. I watch these people because they're entertaining. They keep me abreast of what's going on in the now, and they show me what I need to convey emotion and ideas. They show me what I need to hold myself back when someone may be attacking me and I may feel defensive. You know, they show me these things that I need to not only be a better presenter on YouTube or be a better whatever this little deal is that's going on right now, be a better at that, but they also show me what it is to be a better human. And God bless Boogie. That's it. That's all I gotta say. God bless Boogie. I hope that he has a wonderful experience in this path that he's chosen. I hope he finds that paradigm shift that will let him come around and one day look in the mirror in the morning and say, Boogie, what are you going to do today for Boogie? That's what I want for him to say that to himself every day. What can I do today for Boogie to make Boogie happy and to make Boogie a better person?
With that said, I'm going to have to drop out. But thanks again for having me on, bro. It was fun. It was great catching up with you guys. And we'll talk, man.
Thanks a lot for being with us.
Thank you, Nachi.
Yeah, sure. Cool. We'll talk, man. Later.
I'll be tonight, Notch. Thank you. And now it's time for final words, too. So I'm going to go ahead, since you're still hanging in here, Zero Cool. Anything that we've talked about tonight, I'd like to give you a couple minutes to just say anything, any final words you might have. I'll pop it to the Brit, and then I'll wrap it up. And I'm fucking out of here, man. I got weeds to pull.
I guess I just want to express one final thought. I think that Boogie is at a place where a lot of people, including myself, have been. And while I am more on the harsh, grim, I am a pessimist by nature, unfortunately, side of things. I think the one thing that Boogie is going to come across is he's going to genuinely see who is with him and who is not with him. And when he will hit his plateaus and his goals, but he will ascend from those plateaus as well. And as he starts losing weight, which he will really start, speaking from experience, he will really start to see himself differently, and his mentality will change. And then he's going to have to temper himself in a different fashion. We all have to. That's called life. It's called, life is what happens while we're making plans. That's part of it. So, Boogie, if you ever hear this, know that Zero Cool is on your side. Keep at it. Keep the faith. Do what you got to do. Don't worry about the haters, and keep on keeping on.
Well, I think the way to put it is, when it comes to anything that is kind of an addiction or a habit that one needs to basically drop, it's very much like many other things in life, insofar that you have a routine, and we are, to a great extent, what we do. And when you suddenly, change jobs, or your life suddenly takes a different turn or whatever, you suddenly find yourself living a somewhat different life, and effectively your identity changes with it. And I think these are kind of the thoughts that kind of sprung to mind when the ogre talked of the paradigm shift. And I think Zero has also touched on it there, with basically saying, with these enormous changes that in a way stand before Boogie, there more than likely will emerge a new Boogie. That basically his entire identity, not merely to us, but also to himself, is that person who has that problem with food, who is that humongous big fat person whom he sees when he looks in the mirror. When that changes, then in a way, so will his own perception of himself. So it will be very, very interesting to observe Boogie as this goes on, to kind of see what kind of butterfly emerges from the cocoon, so to speak. Because right now, I don't think anybody knows, least of all Boogie. Over to you, Mr. Rogan.
I'm gonna break what I said, Britt, because I kind of want to press you a little bit. And thanks for coming, Zero Cool. I'm not sure, but I highly doubt there'll be another chance for you to chime in today.
That's okay. I'm about getting ready to bow out anyway, so thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Zero. You know one thing, bro. Whenever you ring me, if I see it, if I ever don't see it, it's no disrespect. I just didn't see it on Twitter. But as was today, if you ever ring me and you see anything, of course, I want your opinion. I'll be honest with you, sir. Of all the people that come on this channel, you're second to none. Zero Cool. Not because you're always right, but because you always say what you feel with conviction. And I feel, I know that you believe what you say in your very soul, man. And you're a credit to your family, sir.
Having me, and I will drop out now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Stay frosty.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
So if I can press you, Britisher, to someone like myself that even knows you a little bit, we're talking about this idea of Boogie going through this life change, and a lot of folks, including myself, I don't know a lot of folks, I know myself, may look at you, sir, and may see, well, really, the Britisher, who is obviously independently wealthy, and has a chauffeur, and has no problems in life whatsoever, never had to worry about a bill or any kind of finance, all of these wonderful things that come with being who you are. How do you deal with adversity when you find something in your life? I'm gonna try to wheedle this down. When you find something in your life that you see needs to be changed, what are the emotions that you may go through? So that you never know. Boogie he's probably watching right now.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to say. You may, at times you may just come to a crossroads in life, and you have to take a decision. And in a way, this in a way touches with the Charlie Gard situation, where you may have to take either way a decision you don't like. And it will be your decision, and you will simply have to live with it. And after that, at times you may feel that twinge, where you sort of you think to yourself, life could have been different, but it doesn't change the fact that you are on the road you are on. This is the road you are traveling in life. And we all, if we go back to the beginnings of our lives, we could have been anything. If the right opportunities would have come along, we might have been astronauts, physicists, the new Mozart. Anything is possible because all that potential lies within us. But as every crossroad is passed, as decisions are made, whether by us or by other people, the kind of the horizon narrows, and more that becomes who we are. But we have to kind of learn to live and be comfortable within our own skins, and we have to find our own identity. We have to find ourselves, however long that may take. With some people it takes a lifetime. And in that regard, I think that is part and parcel of what we are seeing Boogie doing here. That we are almost we have got a front row seat watching a man kind of take the next great step in his life that will eventually turn him into the man he was meant to be. We can't hear you, Mr. Roga.
Oh, yep. I had myself muted. And you had me thinking, I had this question in mind anyway when I went on this tangent. But we can look at this opportunity that this gentleman has taken all of us are presented with all kinds of opportunities, but I know for a fact that you have taken on, and I'm going to very much avoid one of the huge projects that I'm in the middle of right now that you've taken on. But when we take on these huge projects, doesn't matter if it's fulfilling a goal that we have personally set for ourselves, or if it's, whatever that may be, losing weight, bench pressing 300 pounds, writing a novel, whatever that goal may be. When we come down to this thing, how do we, there's a saying it goes this way with the Chinese. If you're going to eat an elephant, you have to start with the first bite. And I guess what I'm trying to ask you here in a very awkward way is how do Boogie, myself, anyone that wants to change something or to accomplish something in their life, how do they take that first bite? How do you start paring it down into bite-sized pieces? Was that too convoluted?
Well, I mean, it's a matter of kind of pretty much, doing what you can achieve first. So with Boogie, he can't immediately get to the place where he gets an operation. He can't just snip his fingers and the doctors will say, okay, we'll do that. No, he has to kind of demonstrate to them that he has got the willingness, that he now is in the place where he can actually successfully have this operation and where it is worthwhile doing it. And for that, he, for example, you know how he's now on a kind of all liquid diet in the build up to his operation. And he has to do this for 2 weeks before his operation, and then he will have to do it for another 2 weeks after his operation. But
God's sake, though, I did see
for a
that.
man.
Can you imagine? I'm sorry, Brisher, and keep on with your idea, but that was what struck me the most. Liquid. Go ahead, man. This is a man.
For a man with his anxieties and whatever, that would represent a huge challenge. But a year ago, he already proved that he could do that because they basically made him do it. He lived for a month on the liquid-only diet. So he has proven to himself that he can do it. And in that regard, all these little steps, and also once you've finished the entire project, whatever your project may be, if you are the person who wants to bench press 300 pounds, once you have bench pressed 300 pounds, you will never be the same again. Because you will always have within you the knowledge that you can, if you apply yourself, be that person who can bench press 300 pounds. If you can run a marathon, you will, for the rest of your life, be a person knowing that you can run a marathon, or unlike all the other people who think that maybe they might be able to do it. You will know that you can do it. And that changes a person. This is what I mean. These things always change our own identities. And in that regard, the identity changes gradually as you take one bite after another of this elephant. At one moment, you are the person, who is looking at this elephant going, I can never manage this. But after perhaps a week, you know that you can eat the leg of one elephant. Sorry.
Oh, no, carry on. It's all good.
If you could take over.
Yeah, it's no big deal. It's his elderly grandfather coughing in the background. Pay no attention. I hope he didn't die, because I tell you, British, you're waxing eloquent on the. We do agree more than I like to admit. I'll tell you that, man. Sometimes it's hard to find not a kindred spirit, but somebody that at least can see that even if I don't agree with you, we agree. And on this point, Britisher, it's once you find out you can eat the leg, that is a big part. But the most profound thing I got, man, is you have to look at it and say, I've got to start eating. I was the one that brought up the eating an elephant. analogy, so I'm gonna roll with it. There comes a time where you have to say, I've got to start eating. I have to make a change. And to me, myself, yeah, I've done some things publicly. Some of those things have been not good. Some of those things have been, I would say, good. They're things that needed to be changed. And I won't lie, this platform that I'm on right now allowed me to look at myself in a way that I haven't been able to look at myself since I was a preacher. Since there was the entire congregation looking back at me. And I tell you what, if you're in that position, whether it be shaman or Methodist minister or anything in between, until you're telling people what you feel and what you think and what you believe, fuck feel. When you're telling people what you believe, there's a certain openness. There's a certain judgment to come that you have perpetuated. God, goodness knows, I perpetuated my own judgment on this platform and others. And yeah, I turned my voice up a little bit. Britisher will be back. He's probably choking to death as we speak.
I've finished choking. I've just basically doused myself in apple juice.
I would have kept going until you spoke again. So
you keep going. You keep going.
To say no, I'm absolutely done.
To let people know. Yes, no, the heart is still beating. Yes.
Oh, because here's the deal, sir. We're gonna do this. As you were before you started to choke to death on your own, excretions. There, I think everybody got the point. So I'm going to do this, man. I could go on forever on this subject, Britisher, of self-improvement, because you may be the refrigerator, sir, but even no matter how young it was that you became that thing, you had to begin to exercise self-restraint, self-discipline, and introspection, right, mate? I mean, you had to look at yourself and say, these things are real, and this is how I'm going to deal with it.
Yes, I mean, a lot of it, particularly if you want to make a change, a lot is a matter of basically not living in denial, realizing first and foremost that you need to make a change, and then simply setting about doing it. Basically setting about eating the foot of the elephant and then the leg of the elephant and then so on.
Can we say, sir, that we're now in solidarity, that you and I, regardless of our religious affiliation, regardless of if we're going to pray or chant or give burnt offerings to Yojo, whatever we're going to do, can we say right now that we stand in solidarity with our own will and our hopes that Boogie would definitely succeed in this paradigm shift he needs to make, man? Can we do that? We could do that, right?
We most certainly do. Yes. I think if there is one person the two of us very much would like to see succeed in this, it is definitely Boogie 2988. Yes.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. My most revered.
There is a man whose struggle we have kind of witnessed for some time now, where you feel, yes, you really want him to succeed. I don't know whether you ever saw that video of his where somebody who was of a similar size as he is had done some exercises and had kind of eventually kind of almost turned into yoga. That basically he can now do quite advanced exercises. And Boogie watched the video and he literally broke into tears on camera. And it was true. Sorry, my voice is going again with the cold. And it was truly moving to see him. And all one can say is that here is somebody who has really struggled with it for a long, long time. And it seems as if slowly his act is coming together and he might just manage it.
Definitely so, sir. And we won't press your voice to the end. And I do want a little bit more out of you. We don't have to stay on this, but probably I'm doing this thing for you and I, and for whoever, because what I want to do, Britisher, is on the day show, as much as we have other guests on, I do want to have a meeting of the minds between you and I. as to who we would want to have on with these. And let's face it, man. What I want to do is this, and I'm segueing into it. So what you know, people that we would want to have on with these deeper thinking individuals, like Poisoning the Well, and that's the segue, because you know, people would discount a comedian, right? Oh, you know, he's trying to make his living, and people would discount, you know, these folks that bring knowledge to us in a way that we can actually laugh at it, man. We can laugh at it, and then we did have Fat Pat, and he was great, man. I'm not gonna try to compare him, because to be honest, I will right now. To this point, it's hard for me because I know Sophane, but Fat Pat, when he came on, I didn't know what to expect from him, Britisher. I just know that, you know, we talked for a minute, and he wanted some certain things to be steered, you know, a certain way, whatever. And I was trying, so I didn't know much. I did not know what to expect from him. But in the end, man, these fellas, and yes, the last little segment here I want before we give our final words and haul asses. Wasn't it cool to have Poisoning the Well on? And isn't it interesting that it seems to me that the folks in life that are able to plumb the depths of the soul, man, you know what I mean? They're able to see beyond the pale. They're able to look through the fog and to get to what humanity is all about. They're always these jokers. And I'm not saying that because you're probably like, oh, Mr. Ogre, you're a big joker. But no, it's the Sophanes and the Fat Pats. And yeah, let's gloat about having them on.
Well, if you remember, I told you some time ago that you know, when it comes to people like Lionel and Boogie, whom you quite admire, it looks effortless. It looks very much just like it is some chap sitting in front of a camera talking, and there's no difficulty to it at all, until you try to do it. And suddenly you realize just how hard it is to do such a thing. And that's when you realize that Lionel has been a trial lawyer. He's been working on talk radio for decades. He also, I believe, was in wrestling commentary.
Yep.
He now is one of these kind of, you know, talking heads they bring on to RT television and other channels, Fox News. That's where this skill came from. With Boogie, he applied himself for 10 years to learning how to do that on YouTube. So this did not come overnight. I mean, in the same way, if you look at TJ Kirk, the formerly known as the Amazing Atheist.
Yeah, TJ, yeah.
Now you are looking at a much more honed character, a much better presenter than if you look at some of his old material that is still out there. Because it needs to grow. It needs to come from somewhere. And that can be said not just about a skill such as just talking to camera. It is also something like being Fat Pat and Sophane. That this isn't just some little lightweight exercise. There is always a lot of heft behind something like that.
Oh, they have a plan.
If you compare it, you know, if you look at something like, you know, okay, yes, we're shooting for the stars here, but if you look at something like Laurel and Hardy, you know, absolutely immortals of comedy, again, you could just look at them and think, these are just two blokes who specialize in pratfalls in black and white movies.
They were more than that, babe.
How much more did it take? How much more skill? How much more philosophy? How much more understanding of humor did it actually take to arrive at that? Look at Charlie Chaplin and the sheer level of humanity that man managed to reach. That, you know, he managed to tug on your heartstrings, not merely just make you laugh by doing silly things.
Yes.
In that regard, never underestimate the people you actually get to see, be it on YouTube or whatever. Always realize that it is, by and large, it doesn't just, and you know, I'm sorry, folks, I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about the people we kind of, you know, the big YouTubers we kind of see and admire.
No, but please, British, be honest. As you say this, man, you're feeling. Look, anybody that doesn't think that the British and I don't get together behind the scenes and try to think of how we can bring folks that we care about, even if we don't know them, if they don't think that we do that. So British, carry on. But yes, no, you're speaking of us, sir, and you know you are, because we try to be more. I would say you are the Stan Laurel to my Oliver Hardy.
But no, I mean, in all honesty, you know, when you know, I tend to try and sort of exclude myself. I tend to kind of talk of others, if you know what I mean, when I try and analyze these things, because otherwise I become much too self-conscious. Trust me.
Of course.
But it is a much bigger exercise other than what you eventually see. What you see is a final product. So when you're looking at Poisoning the Well, I mean, not only are their production values ridiculous, but aside from that, how much goes into that? You know, we know that Fat Pat, how long will he sit and actually write a script?
Well, I'd say days.
More to the point, how long did it take Fat Pat to become the Fat Pat who could write such a script?
Decades.
You know, how many years of development are in there for him to be able to be the person who does that?
Britisher, he told you on this live stream yesterday, or Monday, I should say. I take Tuesday. Anyway, he told you on live stream that he told when they were all going around. Remember, he said in high school, in grade school, grammar school, oh, what do you want to be? And when it came around to him, he didn't say astronaut or firefighter. He said, I want to be a stand-up comedian. It has taken him decades. And we all joke. You joke with me. And, of course, Sofane comes on. And because of his natural exuberance that he has, shall we say, you know, he takes over the room. He is the quintessential Teddy Roosevelt. That is the corpse at every funeral and the bride at every wedding. He's that without trying. And so, yeah, when you look at Sofane, and I'm not taking anything away from him either, but I think I found something out Monday with you. It took Fat Pat decades to hone this ability to bring the parts together, to make the pieces fit into the comedy that it is. And I give credit to you, Britisher. Anybody that sees anything that happens on my channel, unless it's me like doing commentary on social issues that I do rarely, well, most of it does absolutely come from the Britisher. He's the guy that is thinking about how things come together. And to me, oh man, I shouldn't have probably said that. But to me, that's what's amazing, is the Fat Pats of the world that don't get the credit. They got this moron out in front of them going yucca, 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 yada, yada, yada. You know, the monkey on the front of the organ grinders. But who's making the music? Anyway, there you go, Brett.
Well, I mean, you know that I said
that was absolutely ad lib. I did mean most.
Yeah,
I've been
off camera. I sort of said to you that I would have liked. One of the problems is we had quite a few people on that, you know, that day.
Yeah, it won't happen again.
Because I would have really liked an opportunity to kind of, you know, probe. I know that this might come across wrong. Probe Fat Pat a little more, to kind of, because I think you noticed that I kind of went for comedy, as in kind of where does the funny come from? You know, trying to kind of talk to somebody who has done comedy and trying to understand what's his methodology, how does he go about it? Because how are people funny? How does that happen? How do you become a stand-up comic? Why do you become a stand-up comic? Where do you get your material from? How do you develop these things? These things don't just come, you know, you don't just pull these things out of your nose.
Nope.
So it would, you know, that was the one regret I would sort of say I had about that one live stream, that I didn't get to find out a bit more about Fat Pat, and
well, it was my fault.
The nature of comedy and
it was my fault in so many ways. I changed the format right off the bat based on a couple of things, and I should have. But you know what? I'm going to prod those boys because I said 6 weeks. I'll be honest with you. I have a hole that I'm trying to fill with somebody that I will not even remotely allude to. You know, we were talking about it earlier today. So I have a hole I'm trying to fill the 24th. And if that hole's not filled by the 20th, I'm going to get with Poisoning the Well. And before that, in fact, they can see this now. They were in the chat. If they don't see it now, they'll see it later. I'll tell them about it.
All the viewers right now must be thinking, oh, Poisoning the Well are going up in the world. They're now stand-ins for PewDiePie in case he doesn't turn up.
No, it was JonTron. Or no, I'm sorry. It was actually the God of Cringe. And we'll get him on, Britt. I don't know if you know who he is, but I'm going to get the God of Cringe on here if it kills me. I haven't even mentioned him to you because it would be a cringe fest, and he would only be on for a segment. In other words, he would be on for 25 minutes at best. A half-hour segment, where we did anyway. Check out the God of Cringe. I'll send you. I haven't even talked to you about him. But no, it's not that, yes, they're a stand-in for Paul Joseph Watson. If he can't make it the 24th. In fact, Alex Jones was supposed to, but then, I don't know, mate. I'm just trying my best. You're the one that prodded me tomorrow.
You wanted Alex Jones, and I just said, no, not another bloody American. So then you decided to go for Paul Joseph Watson instead.
Well, of course, if Alex Jones was on here with me, the only thing we'd talk about would be, Bohemian Grove and fucking chemtrails and bloody flat earth and you name it. That's all we talk
about. Let's leave the French out of it. Yes.
Oh, good Lord. And now, Britisher, we should get together more during the day. I think right now in this time of my life, it's mostly my fault because as soon as the sun rises, I hit the fucking ground running, man. And I do this at this time of the day for a very specific reason. 3 o'clock in the afternoon for me is 8 o'clock in the evening for you, which is both, it's good for everybody. And I would guess, and I can see now that I said that, I don't want to guess without looking, but I got the finer print. Matt Barkley, I think he's English. I mean, I would guess that at least, now it's 9. It was 5 of 10, and we're below double digits, so we're about to leave anyway. But I would guess that at least half of the folks watching right now are British. So I time it all for all these things culminating into one wonderful section for the ogre. But I've neglected talking to you, mate. And if you let me go too wild, I'll start, I'll just be like, I'll forget that people are watching right now. I've been into Rome. I'll tell you that much. I've been into Rome, and I'm going to move on. And believe me, I know you right now. I almost think I heard a hiss draw in through your teeth. Just don't worry. But I'm into it. But there's a certain section that at this point I've read 3 times, and it's just because I imagine the things, the way things. It doesn't everybody imagine things to be as they want them to be. I guess that's a good way to get the fuck off that subject, because when we look back. If we can have something that pulls us back into nostalgia, and we can actually be there, man, we can be there. We can be, man, I wish I could say the character's name. I'll tell you later. In fact, I might just send it to you. We're the only ones. No, if somebody could come in the side chat. But there's this character, it begins with O. When there's parts of this thing that I'm into where I find myself as being the big O. And just being the dummy that's there, but he's still there, man. He's there. Okay, I'm done. And so, 3rd time I've read through this one section, Brett. That's so good, man. It's so fucking good. I'll get on to the rest, mate. I did it today. You were like, carry on, and I actually went back. I went back like 40 pages. It's got back into this one part that I like so much. So anyway, was that too much? Eventually, sir.
I'm just trying to unknot my back teeth. Yes.
Yeah. Well, eventually, sir. You would, when it comes, you wouldn't have to promote anything, because this has been so cryptic, and I'm going to leave it that way, that nobody really knows what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm going to move on. So in fact, I'm not going to say what I was going to. But I'm just enthralled, and I'll go back into it. It's a rainy day here, mate. It's like the rain's coming down. And I look outside, and I imagine the legions coming across the field, and it's like, it's just so wonderful when it's a nice, misty, rainy day. I pay for it with my sinuses, but
actually, here's a story you might quite like. talking of legions coming across the field, because in York, York is a very ancient city. It goes back to Roman times when, for a while, it was kind of at times a capital in Britannia. And after that, when the Vikings came along, it became Jorvik and whatever, which then eventually got corrupted into York as it is. But that means that there are a great many kind of bits and pieces of ruins of the Romans and the Viking, medieval period and things like that. And there are quite a few haunted houses in York. And in one case, there was
haunted houses, sir.
There was a chap who went down into his cellar one day, and out of the wall came walking legionaries. But they seemed to be about knee deep in the ground. And they marched past, four abreast. And I mean, of course, obviously, I mean, once he had finished wetting himself, he told other people and sort of said, well, I've had Roman legionaries walking through my basement. What on earth is going on? And of course, it was deemed, oh, well, he may have had a
how I'm thinking about it right now, how I'm feeling about it right now, Brett.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Later, in one of the digs, they found a Roman road, and they extended the digging into this particular house.
Oh Lord!
And they found that under his cellar floor was still the paved Roman road.
Oh Lord! I hope you have at least 20 minutes. You're setting yourself up, Brett.
It was in depth. It was in depth.
Under his house.
It was in depth, roughly deep enough so that it would explain why the Roman soldiers he saw were knee deep in the floor.
Oh yeah, so of course they were Britisher. You set yourself up, mate. And I don't even care. You said the other day, about a week or two ago, that we left our best stuff off for the end. So I tell with it. I'll start it this way, and if you answer one way or the other, I'll leave off. Do you believe any of that bosh?
No, but there's a romance to it.
But well, there's not a romance to me wanting to believe that my soul goes on and it's something that carries on forever, sir. There's nothing romantic in that.
Of course that is.
I'm not going to press you on that, man. I already diddled around in some shit I should have talked about, like, a minute ago. So, no, I will. So, okay. Do you believe that there's ever would be an instance where you would experience something like that?
I have no idea. I think you only really would know when it happened to you.
Well, so in other words, you're not ruling it out, sir.
I don't think you can ever rule out something like that, because if you do, then you're operating from a position of believing you have perfect knowledge.
Let me smoke some marijuana. Look,
and they have,
what I'm trying to carry on.
What I'm trying to say is these stories have persisted. Ghost stories and things like that have persisted over the centuries.
Yes.
That is not to say that there are ghosts.
No.
But it is to say that people can come to believe that they have seen ghosts. Now, whatever brings that about, we're not sure. It may just be that, yes, they were drunk, they were hallucinating, we don't know.
A wish dream fulfillment. Remember when we talked about that a few days ago? A wish dream fulfillment. Could it be something like that?
Well,
not even drunk. In other words, they're down in their basement and because the human mind is so expansive.
In this particular incident, the one thing that makes it so wonderful is that the Roman soldiers that he believed to have seen
In the knees. They were in the
were
knees.
effectively walking at the height
On
of the
the
road
road.
that they then found.
Oh, God's sake. Lord knows he could not have read a history book and known that. I mean, I don't know, Britt. Come on, man. Look,
But,
you're killing me right here.
The odds that you have a Roman road
No, I know
running
what
right
it is.
under your house
Roman.
is
It's Roman. So, of course, if it's
even
Roman.
even in the city of York, that's a long stretch.
No, in the Britishers' mind, Roman legions still march the earth because Rome will never die. Look, man, listen.
You know, I did not say that.
Well, no, but would you discount? Okay, so since you said one could not discount this idea, would you discount the idea that there were once humans on this earth that saw a great catastrophe, left a little cryptic shit behind, hauled ass, and that are eventually going to come back and give us the key to life, the universe, and everything?
Can I rule it out? No. Because that would mean I would know that it wasn't the case. Is it probable? No.
Well, but you didn't qualify the other with probable. You just said
Well, no, the other isn't probable either.
Okay,
you asked me whether I believed it, and I said no.
Well, but here we're getting down to it, Brett. So here it goes. Is there nothing inside of you that gives credence to the idea that there was possibly a much more intelligent race of human being that are exactly like us? In fact, we are their descendants somehow or another. A few stayed behind that came before us that were much more intelligent than Archimedes or Socrates, any of them.
Again, this is not something I can rule out because I have no knowledge to say that I can rule it out. But have I any reason to believe it? None whatsoever.
All right, fine. And here's the perfect time, Brett. I'll tell you one thing, mate. Before I met you, I thought that I was the slipperiest fella that I ever knew in my life, that no one that I ever knew could ever argue something to the point where there would be no lever, no Archimedes style lever to put myself on and move the earth with. But fuck you, mate. You got me, man. I tell you. So in summary on that, maybe this guy saw some legionaries walking through his basement, and maybe there is some super being that is somewhere outside of us that could know something about us.
Maybe.
All right, yeah. I give it to you, Rich.
I don't know if I've told you this story before, but in order to stay with Romans and York, there was a wonderful tale that actually hit the newspapers. And that was some Roman reenactors. Now, for the Americans in the audience out here, I think you have got some reenactors over there for kind of, America's War of Independence and people that, people who sort of dress up in Independence War uniforms and things like that. Well, over here in Britain,
the Romans on horseback, though. Nothing like that, man. We don't know.
Over here, we've got that to a much greater degree. We've got jousting knights. We've got, you name it, we've got them. They're all completely nuts, by the way. And we've got some very, very dedicated folks who are Roman reenactors. And their favorite topic is obviously the Roman legions. So there was a squadron, I believe it was the Ermine Street Guard, which they are the most famous Roman reenactors here in Britain. And they were doing a display for an audience in York. And suddenly the centurion stopped dead. And that particular centurion, he's a real sort of grizzled individual. He's a tough-looking chap. And he stopped dead and looked into the sort of mid-distance and went, I'm not having that. And everyone turned, including the audience. And what they saw is there was some people on the roof of a church. And they were obviously trying to steal the lead off the roof of the church. Because it's quite a valuable commodity. The problem, of course, it leaves the roof of the church no longer waterproof. So he spotted this happening. So he immediately took his, part-time legionaries, and they rushed through the streets of York to the church and surrounded it. And they held the thieves there until the police arrived to arrest them. So these thieves were actually arrested by the Roman legion, which I don't think too many criminals can claim.
I don't want to break this out, man, because you've never said it. Where did you get your knowledge of ancient Rome? Give me some books, or if you can. I don't want to. I just put you on the spot like a motherfucker.
I can give you some book titles. I can send them to you. There's one in particular that I absolutely swear by, but I can't even. Hang on, I'm just leaning across here.
Oh Lord, if you can't pronounce the name, I can't, mate. What are you gonna do? Give me something to say?
Carey and Scullard. Let's see.
Carey and Scullard.
Yeah, and it's just a history of Rome, Carey and Scullard, and it is just about the greatest.
So what about the rise and fall? I've read most of it. It's a long
by Gibbon. I mean, that's a classic. Yes.
Yeah, but how do you feel about it? Because I did not read it all, man. I skipped some parts. I like Moby Dick, as you know, but there's a chapter in Moby Dick. It's called Sectology, where Melville just starts talking about narwhales and right whales, and he's giving sectology, which is the study of whales, and it goes on for about, in my favorite hardcover book I got, it's about 30 pages. I've never read it through, and so that's what I would say about the rise and fall of Rome. I skipped through so much. I don't know if is it a good book to read about the history of Rome?
Well, I mean, hang on a moment. Is it the rise and fall, or is it the decline and fall? I think it's the decline and fall, isn't it, by Gibbon?
Yeah, Gibbon is the author. I might have the name wrong. I'm telling you, I had to read parts of it.
You won't like Gibbon because he says some not very nice things about Christians.
Well, it's not. No, okay. And oh man, you had to go there, huh? Because I'm the religious kind. I see how it is, Britt. You're too smart for my own good. but that's got nothing to do with it. He painted things. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Was that, let me ask you this question. Was that history or mythology? Gibbons.
I would say that is largely history. Yes. Gibbon was generally seen as a very sort of first-class historian. Yes.
Yeah, well, he flourished too much to be a historian.
He clearly, well, I mean, you have to understand that he wrote at a day and age when he was pretty much the first person ever to attempt such a mammoth exercise as he took on.
Either do history or do mythology, do fiction. And if you ask me, because I've read some Greek, history, Roman history. It's a little boring. I was thinking Greek because it's not like Greek history, man. And maybe it's because it's so old. That's also fiction. I don't know. But to me, Gibbons was. I don't buy that. I did not like.
When you look at quite a lot of Roman history, you have to understand that some of it is kind of history as we would kind of define it. Other parts of Roman history are very much kind of lost in kind of legend. I mean, nobody knows that there was a Romulus and a Remus,
He actually tied it into our modern society, not just to the point that we have the Senate. And Gibbons made it seem like Rome was the antithesis of society, and that the only thing that brung its destruction about was a conflict within itself among factions. And I understand that was part of it, but no nation Britisher can live forever As much as I want to sit here and be, oh, look at the America. Guess what? In 1840, everybody would have said, look at Britannia, right? They would have been like, oh, that's the fucking.
Yeah. We would have been seen as the power destined to take over the world. Yes.
The world. In fact, destined in 1840, mate, you already took over the world. You were about to start the war with Napoleon and the Napoleonic Wars.
Oh, no, that was already over.
1840.
1815 is when Waterloo happened.
Yeah,
so
sorry. Well, yeah, and I was about ready to look it up, but you're correct. But so, more to my point, even though I was incorrect in that, as I was going to look it up. So it was a little bit before that. So in 1840, you had already beaten Napoleon. That's when Dumas did write the Count of Monte Cristo. Was right around that time, and you were no one would have dreamed. Let me put it this way, mate. When Rome came to power, 1,000 years before that, in fact, we can go to the point where Alexander the Great was in charge of Greece, and they were rolling over India. At that point, if anyone would have said that Greece would no longer be the world power, and no less than that Britisher, but that Rome, which I've got to go back, you would know. I don't think when I don't even think they might have been a small little community, but I don't think they were a city at all at that point. And if anyone would have said that, they would have laughed.
By that time, they will have already been something, because Alexander was really about at his height at about 300 BC.
Yes.
So
in 400 BC,
100 years after that, Rome was basically, I think, already roughly defeating Hannibal, or having defeated Hannibal.
So we're talking about 1,000 years with Rome, right? We're talking about 400 BC to around 600-700 AD.
Well, I mean, Rome as an entity as a republic begins at 500 BC.
Right.
That's when they throw out the Etruscan kings. And by that time they are already a city, because otherwise, they wouldn't have been worth fighting over, and they would never have had the nerve to go independent, if you know what I mean.
So when they threw out the Etruscan kings, at that point, man, because I know you know this shit, so let me prod you, man, and we'll stop this whenever you want, but you're on my vein. When they threw out the Etruscan kings, what did Rome look like then? It was not a republic at that time.
Well, what it was, I believe, is they realized they wanted something, but they didn't want another monarchy. They weren't going to throw out one king and just replace him with another.
But at that time, when the Etruscan wars, were they not at that point a monarchy, basically?
Well, as I say, they would have, if anything, they would have been a rebel territory against the rightful monarchs, which would have been the Etruscan kings. What they then did is they started looking for their own sort of constitution, and I believe they consulted Solon of Athens, who was a very famous kind of jurist and philosopher of his day, and they sent a committee. They actually sent a committee to him to kind of go through the options of what would be possible. How could we run our city? And they came back with the various options. One thinks that perhaps also the fact that there were some Greek merchants who had already settled in the city, who therefore had knowledge of, the various experiments in democracy that had been done in Greece, that they may also have influenced things. But yes, they started out in a way just like America, that first you revolt against the power that is in charge,
which was the Etruscan kings.
Yes, particularly in America. Yes, but in Rome it was the Etruscan kings.
Okay.
But the Americans in a way did the same thing. First you revolt, and then you try and pin down what you want it to be in the end. So it isn't as if they started with their constitution and then led a revolt. First they have a revolt against the British, And then they say to themselves, well, hang on a moment, what are we going to do when we get rid of them? So then the thinking begins. And in the same way, the Romans did the same thing, that they had a revolt against this terribly corrupt king. But then they realized, well, what do we do with ourselves? What do we do with ourselves now? And that is how the Republic was invented.
Well, how far back do we have to go to get to Romulus and Remus? This idea of,
yeah,
because
I mean, that's,
you're tying them together with you're tying Rome together with America. I'll say this: Rome had the manifest destiny thing way before we knew that was a word. That was an idea.
Yes, yeah, because it was just the rise and rise and rise of Rome. It seemed completely unstoppable.
Well, in the idea that it's rising because it should rise.
Well, how shall we say? It is very it's very easy to basically sit within the bubble and see your bubble grow and grow, and then just therefore determine that the world is basically programmed for your bubble to be getting bigger. Whereas, of course, that there were things at work that were perhaps much greater than the Romans that nobody could really know about. History works in this strange way. But
well, we've taken everything we have from the Romans. It's gotten to the point where a Britisher, you and I fall into it all the time. I mean, Caesar can't fall from epilepsy, can he? You know, if the Caesar tweets out the wrong tweet, don't we all jump on him? You know, don't we all say what a moron? And so we've not only drawn the idea into Great Britain's no different. You folks just come from such antiquity that they can't pin down when the barbarians of the island decided that they were the ones that should rule that island. It just goes back that far. But it's been the same thing. I mean, you got my back here up a little bit when you were,
when you look at the influence that Rome had, it really is enormous.
Enormous.
When you look at something like King Alfred here in Britain, so one of the Saxon kings, and he basically brought in Roman law, because the medieval kingdoms, the kind of feudal systems that sprung up after the Roman Empire had collapsed. I mean, it was very primitive. It was, anywhere where it was,
the Vandals,
precisely,
the Ostrogoths,
anywhere where it was any good, it was at least based partly on what the Romans had before. So there was the knowledge that there had been something greater before. And basically what the English did is they basically imported Roman law back into England, and then of course amended it for their own times. But the famous English and then British law that created these principles and Magna Carta and things like that, in a way you can draw a direct line back to Rome. Because
you can, Brett, but I'm telling you, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Herioli, the Lombards, they're all there right now waiting for your empire, Britisher. Whether I like to admit it or not, your ancestors created what is America right now. Can we agree on that?
I think it's fair to say that, yes.
In this modern day Rome that your people created, man, by steam power with the earth. All Americans believed that the Industrial Revolution happened in fucking Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It happened in England. It happened in Leeds. It happened in London. That's where they broke. Anyway, I mean, I go on and on, but when this falls, Britt, all of those that I mentioned before, the Herioli, the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Lombards, the Francos, all of those that were barbarians then, which are barbarians now, man, they're going to come fill this void, mate. I'm out of here because you just got me on a crazy tangent. They really are. I'm not kidding either, mate.
I mean, we're back in Gibbon.
The end of Babylon. Babylon is going to fall, and when it falls, this barbarian horde. That one of the things I love most about Cabbage Patch Bastard is he'd be the barbarians is not at the gate right now, Britisher. Hector at Portus, Tempest Fuga. Time is fleeting. Hector is not at the gates. He's in the city. It's over, man. It's the time that you love so much, that Roman Empire that you know so much about. I dig the picking your brains on that shit, man. We are the Roman Empire. We are the proxy Roman Empire through the great empire Britannia. And they want it to fall so bad. Man, they're going to take down Johnny Mac to do it.
That was cryptic, if ever there was one. Yes, yeah. The John McEnroe reference was cryptic for anybody who hasn't seen any previous live streams.
No, the week that was. I got that from the week that was. I hope that everybody
mentioned it on a previous live stream, at least.
Oh, I know, but I did it because of the week that was. That's why it came. I wouldn't even have known that happened, Britisher. I don't joke when I say that of all the things, I just leave you out because I don't want to make you feel weird, mate. But when I'm throwing Boogie in those, and I don't throw Sargon in because I want him to be on the show like within the next 4 weeks or so. So I don't say a lot about Sargon because I don't want to seem like a lick spittle. I just read that today. A lick spittle. That's a fucking good word, mate. Yes, that's a good one.
Good old-fashioned English word, that, a lick spittle.
Yeah. I read that today. Anyway, I gotta go. Anyway, I'm not going to kiss a bunch of butt. But what's happened is Rome has continued. Where Hadrian's Wall ended, Britisher, can't you know it? I don't even have to persuade you on this one. Where Hadrian's Wall ended, Rome now begins.
Can I just blow your mind a bit here? Because Hadrian's Wall is the famous wall because in large sections it still survives. But the Romans, they kind of played their games here on the British Isles. So at one point, it seemed as if they pretty much had conquered the whole thing. And then the governor was withdrawn, and it's believed he might have been poisoned by the emperor, who was jealous of his success. And then all the advances were kind of lost again. But there is also, I think under Antoninus Pius, they pushed the wall further up, where actually the island narrows more. So it would have been between Glasgow and Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, yeah.
So they abandoned Hadrian's Wall and built another set of forts and another wall further north between Glasgow and Edinburgh, so deep in Scotland. And then at some point they just sort of thought, well, this isn't really worth it because none of the land. So basically our supply routes are stretched even further to get up here. The sea is even wilder to get supplies of grain by ship here. And
as British as you like to be, man, and as reserved as you like to be, your ancestors were the crazy, painted, naked blue men that would rush down. When women, too, at that point, there really was. I don't know how many women there were, but I got to throw that in there. Just rushing down, butt naked, painted blue. Oh, good Lord. That's your ancestors.
Covered warriors. Yes. No, but I just want to finish this point because I think you'll appreciate this point. Basically, at some point, they then just decided, look, it's not worth it up here because the land between Hadrian's Wall and the Antonine Wall, as it is known, it's just of no use to the Romans because you have to think of an economy that was based on wheat, olive groves, and wine. And the land in Scotland was of no use to them. So they just basically eventually abandoned it and just went back to the Hadrian's Wall, because there was just no point stretching their supply lines. But if you think of it, given that the divide between the Scottish and the English runs largely along Hadrian's Wall. Now, I know the border isn't quite exactly the same, but it clearly seemed to have formed kind of the very basis for the kind of difference between the Scots and the English. If you think of that, had the Romans not abandoned that wall, then Count Dankula might be English.
I kind of thought you might be going there. you kept mentioning Glasgow. So can I say what you? Oh, I don't even know. I better not even mention it. Are you going to meet people that I may know in the future, or do you speak of that?
Maybe, okay. Yes. It's
but you don't want
possible.
To
if I'm not dying of cold in mid-July, then maybe, yeah.
So you said maybe, but do you not want to speak of that, or maybe later date when we know that we're going to talk?
Yeah, I'll say maybe a later date when we know a bit more.
Well,
yeah,
blah blah blah. So he might be meeting the Prime Minister of England, of Britannia, there, Theresa May, and though he doesn't want to admit it, she has seen some of his YouTube videos, and she thinks that that the Britishers critique.
You're doing your best. You're doing your best to make this video go viral, aren't you?
Oh man, listen. As a matter of fact, Brett, what I'm going to do is something that, because right now I can see there's 8 people right now watching. These are our die-hard, what we say in America, there are ride or die followers right now. This is the core 8 folks that are usually here when we start and are probably here when we end. So I want to ask something, and it's always so easy, man. Listen, I said I take my cues from Lionel Nation, and and I see him do this all the time on live stream. By the way, Britisher, on the end of this, as you get your final summation together, bro, because this is it. Tell us what you think, whatever point you want to make about everything we talked about today. Get it ready for like 5 minutes when I'm done with this. So Lionel Nation is banned for mentioning Seth Rich, and I'll say it, ban me then, fuckers. It'll hurt my feelings, but the Britisher and I will take our ride and die people, and we'll go to the Ogre channel that I should be live streaming on anyway. I'm just a glory hound, and I want everybody to come and join us that will. And it's very difficult to start something new like that. Seth Rich. He was assassinated. I'm not just saying Seth Rich was assassinated. I don't know. Those are headlines, though. And apparently, man, one of my heroes, Britisher, the guy I look up to, man. I mean, beyond, I like you, Britt. I look up to you too, mate. Saying this in front of everybody. I look up to you. You have influence on me. I change shit, and I consider your ideas, and you damn well know I do. Lionel Nation, he would have more influence on me. No joke. And you can't begrudge me that. I mean, the guy's a fucking genius. And he says Seth Rich. And now I am screwed out of my time because I'm Britisher. I would send you the links. I love my time with Lionel Nation every day. He'd do his little live stream, usually about 30 minutes to maybe an hour and a half tops. Just him. Only him, Britt. What a genius. What a fucking guy. No commercial breaks on that shit either, man. Just Lionel Nation, a camera, a microphone, and you. He said Seth Rich was assassinated. Seth Rich was assassinated. Seth Rich. Fuck. I don't even have the words. So as you get ready for your end diatribe, I'm just going to implore you folks. A couple of things. First off, since I got your attention now, if you appreciate the format as it was today, in other words, if you'd like it to be on the day show, just mostly the Britisher and I, if we entertain you and inform you in a way that you don't see the need for a lot of other folks to come on, maybe 1 or 2 at best, just hit 1. If you think we should have 10 people on the panel every day, hit 2. Hope y'all heard that. I won't say it again. I would like to know what you think, though. So, Brett, there it is for me. The wrap up for today for me is this. And then, yeah, of course, when you're done, I'll do a little 2-minute thing. But this is it for me. But, this is it. Boogie, don't change. As much as I respect panel members that were on here before today, as much as I respect whoever's got their voice to get on their pedestal and start keyboard worrying it up and telling you that you should have been harder, you should have. No, listen, brother, whatever you've done, and I hope you see this, Boogie, whatever you've done, It's worked, mate. You got 4 million subscribers. I'm not telling you to change either. I don't want you to change. Don't be the guy that now has a platform and he had these issues and now uses the platform to feed his id and appease his whatever. Be the man you are. Do what you plan to do, though, mate. If you ever need any help, I would not offer myself, as I am succumb to vices of all kinds. But I would offer up the Britisher, man, get a hold of him. So that's my diatribe. That's my end thought. Boogie, don't change. Folks out there, don't change. Britisher, thanks for coming. I think you remembered all the topics, man. This is the end for me.
Well, I mean, I would just sort of chime in regarding Lionel, because what you said, I would say, look, he is going to be back soon enough, because we all know that the ban isn't going to stand, because this is clearly just a mischievous attempt in order to try and silence him. But he is going to be back, and I think that is pretty much the whole lesson from YouTube, that it doesn't really matter. I mean, I have had one video banned at one point, and eventually it had to be reinstated, because people will try these things, but sooner or later, yes, the truth kind of gets through, and in that regard, there isn't any stopping this phenomenon, really. I mean, even YouTube itself doesn't seem to really be able to stop it, much as though they have tried. So in that regard, yeah, you'll get your Lionel back. And frankly, all these attempts are completely futile. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Oh, goodness. Hello. Oh, something must have happened. Oh, I'll pick it up from here. Folks, listen. I'm going to wrap this up for me in a way. I hope, Britisher, and if you weren't done, if something happened while I stepped out, man, my dog is a little... What happened is the other night, my dog got sprayed by a skunk, okay? And now she's freaking out, and very rarely can I get her to go outside. And I just attempted to do that. And I'm so lazy that I don't even put in my Bluetooth thingy majiggers. So, Britisher, I see you're still here. I must have missed something, or it's quite possible that my brother was choking on his own summer cold. I got to say this, though. I'm going to look back. I see a lot of ones. Well, I see 1 and 2. MC says 1 and 2. So we'll have a little bit of both. So, you know what, man? With the people that are here right now, I'm going to say it's probably what we're going to do is a lot of 1 and 2. No, we're going to do a lot of 1. We're going to hone what we do. We're going to hone what we do down. And hopefully, and in the end, I want to be very clear here. I really do. I want to be honest with the people that are left listening here. I want to be very clear. In the end, whom we hope to please is ourselves. You know, if I know one thing, if I can please the Britisher, because we just had a show Monday. It was good too. I'm going to take a little time to gloat about that. It was wonderful. Poisoning the Well. Sofane and Fat Pat they're on the top of the heap, and we've had bigger YouTubers. Everybody knows that. trying to get a bigger one on now that we've had on, and I'm sure he'll be on. But when it comes down to getting into the head of mankind, you just can't beat a comedian. You can't beat an actor, and you can't beat a comedic actor. Let me say it that way. Because a comedian, well, yeah, I guess there's some stand-up guys and girls that suck or whatever. But it's very difficult to try to beat a comedic actor. Robin Williams. Oh, man. Anybody seen Patch Adams? Oh, gracious. God rest his soul. What? And I don't believe all the Bosch. Everybody's like, oh, his star killers, and people are, David Carradine. I don't know, man. That was weird, Carradine thing, but I'm not going there. Comedic actors, they seem to have this tentacle that reaches out and touches right into the heart of mankind. They're innately able to make a human being laugh. And there's nothing more difficult in life to make somebody laugh. I mean, I'm getting all philosophical now, and I could have a couple people listen, I'm sure. But to make somebody laugh, that's a gift. Well, here we go. Britisher, I see you still there with your mic off. I'm going to do my best to wrap this up. And let's see if you're here on the after chat. Donald Jr., I don't know if, I'm not going to say that's a nothing burger. I'm just going to say that Donald Jr., he made a mistake. Hillary made a mistake. There you go. I'm not going to go deeper than that. Do I think Hillary Clinton wanted to betray her country? Give me a break, man. If you believe that, you're kind of stupid. Do I think she had some people killed? Yeah, I believe Hillary Clinton had some people killed. But I don't think it was to betray her country. I think it was to further her own ends. Do I think Hillary Clinton would betray her country to further her own ends? It depends. I mean, like if she was in a POW camp, somewhere in the middle of Vietnam, yeah, she'd probably say anything she could to get out of that deal. Did I hear a clickety clack? Britisher, are you alive?
Yes, I'm alive.
I'm not sure how I lost you, mate. I got up, man. My dog she did get sprayed by a skunk. And since
yes, you
see her later, she's freaking out because I've either been, man, Dobermans are wonderful dogs, but what they're made to do is to protect you. That is this dog's sole purpose. There could be thunder and lightning or fireworks, and if you came in the house, she'd try to kill you. But she's terrified of thunder and lightning. And since the skunk episode, because my wife and I, she usually sleeps, that big fucking dog sleeps in our bed with us. She's been sleeping on this floor beside me so I can drape my hand over and touch her ear, because Lord knows if I don't. I mean, talking about making love, it's difficult for Mrs. Ogre and I throw her out of the fucking room and close the door. I'll leave it at that. Because otherwise she's either staring or trying to get up in there and going, why aren't you petting me that way, Dad or Mom? And it's like, we don't, it's weird. It's weird. So she's been on the floor, and anyway, I had to get up and let her out to pee because she was starting to hassle me in a way that I knew it was pee. And she's right back there again. So, Britisher, how did I lose you? And I'm out of here, man. I really was going to wrap it up, but I lost the last part of what you said, and I thought you died.
Well, I mean, it was kind of part coughing fit and part various events that happened at this end that required my immediate attention. So, hence, I needed to step away from the computer.
Yeah, well, either way, don't matter. So, are you done, sir? Are we out of here?
Yes, I think we're all done.
You know what, man? It's been such a good show. I'm going to endeavor in the future to do what happened tonight, and that is, have some kind of structure, man. You've got all your shit going on with the week that was. You're kind enough to show up here usually 3 days a week, do your little time here. It's almost prison, right? You do your little time and you get out. And so I feel like it is my
Ogre is the chief screw.
No, I guess I would be. I kind of look like it, huh? With his glasses and the bald head.
Just for anybody who might misunderstand that term, the screw is the prison guard.
Oh Lord, if anybody didn't understand that, they shouldn't be here right now. And there's only there's 3 people here. Look, thanks for coming, Brett. I'm leaving.
It was an honor and a privilege, Mr. Rogan.
It's been a good time, but there's got to be structure in this. And one of those things is, let me look at the time. It's, oh yeah, it's 7. So 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's actually went an hour longer than it should have went. So I appreciate y'all hanging in here till the end. There was a lot more of you like in the beginning of this hour. And I know 4 hours is fun to you diehard fans or whatever, the fans, whatever y'all are, you diehard people. It's good, but for me and the Britisher and for everybody else in the world, 4 hours is too long. So we're going to go for 3 hours in the future. We're going to try to have a structure, Brett, you know, a cadence where we're all marching to the same drum, and we'll never have more than 4 people, you know, on any show.
Structure sounds a good idea. It's why you get sort of pedants like myself suddenly interrupt the discourse and go boogie.
Yeah, you did good, bro. Because you know you had a show. In fact, I'll say this: everybody here today, well, minus Zero Cool, had a show map, and they should have known. And from now on, everybody and that's not gay, is it? Is that too geek of me?
No, I think it's a very good idea to try and kind of say, look, folks, this is what we want to talk about today. So let's stick with this rather than go off on your sort of personal hobby horses. Yeah.
And we can always have a point where if, you know, where somebody can go on a fun of whatever, a hobby horse for a sort, you know, a set amount of time. But that said, listen, folks, be good to your friends. Be good to your family members, man. Be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one, or a member of your YouTube community has done seems to be so huge you'll never be able to forget about it. Because, constant viewer, those of you that will watch later, all of our beloved human counterparts at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, and your child that just wasn't destined to make it will depart from you.